Season, a no-doubter, right through the left side, base hit for Bobby. Waters scores. Here comes Isbell. He's in 2. It's 7-5. Bobby Witt Jr. comes through with a 2-run single. And he rips it into right center field. A huge hit for Vinny. India scores. Witt flies to third. Wilson waves him home. This game is tied. A lightning run from Pasquantino. Not a home run, but it's a base hit to left. And now Vinny rumbles around third. The Royals have taken the lead in the top of the 5th inning.
Oh, boy. That's what it sounded like last night on the Kansas City Royals TV network as the Cardinals lose 10-7 at home, a game that felt like it was over early on in a good way. Cardinals go up early, and you're like, okay, Pallante, weird first inning, but otherwise, like, really settled in. And then the 5th inning happened. And everything went to hell so incredibly fast. Pallante could not find a swing and miss. He could not get an out. These balls were scorched behind him. There was nothing the defense could do. This was not a misplay game. Like that game in Texas, there were some misplays in it that led to some of the runs, right? Even if they weren't errors, just like, okay, weird stuff was happening. The one time where there was a misplay last night was basically John King. I don't know what he was doing, but he was just like, oh, here, take this ball. Here.
He was making sure he didn't overthrow him.
Other than that, though, I mean, defense was fine. In fact, like Victor Scott made an unbelievable catch on that first Jack Caglione at bat, but it was just your pitching. Pitching couldn't get swing and miss. First it was Pallante, then it was Steven Matz, then it was Kyle Leahy. All of them had issues with it. Alex, what happened last night to the Cardinals?
They couldn't stop the snowball, and it's something that we have not seen a lot of this season. Frankly, they haven't put themselves in a position to have to stop a snowball, but when it happened, it felt like every single person in that rotation or bullpen was trying to push it, and it was just squashing them. And it's concerning in the sense if you think it is going to become a trend. I'm not there yet. To me, it was just another blip on the radar to where, look, he just didn't have a good night pitching-wise against the Kansas City Royals, which I understand, bad offense, but you have to imagine that offense had a little bit of a boost knowing that Cagliano was called up and in the lineup for them. So, to me, the story of that game last night was the fact that you just could not find a way to stop that snowball. It took 3 guys to get you through that, and you still gave up 8 total runs. I think if there was a concerning part of it, it's starting to be the wear and tear on that bullpen. Specifically, 2 guys that are used in high leverage roles for you, whether it's Steven Matz or Kyle Leahy. But even that, it's like, I just don't know if I can put the panic button on that yet. But it is something that you see, and it's like, okay, this is something that we have not experienced a lot of yet, and it's starting to happen and pop up every once in a while.
It wasn't just last night, though. This is now 2.5 series where this has been the case. It happened against Baltimore. Now, your offense was good enough that it covered it up. Wasn't a huge deal. Offense overcomes it. That's got to be the theme of this season for the Cardinals. Texas, you had a great start by Sonny Gray, but otherwise your pitching was not particularly great in that series either. Now, it was a couple of blow-ups. There are some caveats to all of this. A couple of guys that aren't even around anymore on this roster. And then last night it happens again. So over the last week and a half, you have the 28th best ERA in Major League Baseball as a staff, 5.4 ERA. Worth noting, the Philadelphia Phillies, who are amazing, are right behind you at 29th in Major League Baseball with a 5.9 ERA. So you have, technically speaking, good company at the bottom of this list. Could be a blip. It's possible. Ollie Marmol was asked about this last night, and here's what he had to say about what took place in that game with their pitching.
Swing and miss came back to bite us, right? A lot of ball in play. They all found holes, and there wasn't really an answer for it outside of Matt's 2 punch-outs for ball in play. Frustrating because you can't stop the bleeding. It's just hit after hit. To your point, they put 2 on the board quickly with the homer, and then he retires 13 in a row. So he's pitch count's really low. You're hoping one of those ground balls is at somebody and it ends the inning, but they continue to find holes. And like I said, one of the first times where you really needed a little bit of swing and miss. Yeah, it's not like we're misplaying the ball behind them or anything like that. They just literally all found either dirt or grass, and it was as frustrating as can be for him, for everybody, and then not a whole lot of answers behind it. So.
That was Ollie Marmol after the game last night. I apologize.
That's what the Royals were doing.
Jackson cut that audio. I used it. I forgot that he put sounder at the back end of it. I apologize. No, not the run. Just like explaining why that's the case. They use the sounders at the end of their. It is what it is.
Marmol did nail it out of the ballpark.
Royals did.
We got this text. That was Ollie Marmol after the game last night. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPN From the 314. Ollie's an idiot!
Oh, wow.
How they didn't have a righty up when Pallante lost it is beyond me, especially righties to India, Witt, and Garcia. Third time through the order coming up. Ugh. Guys, it's the first game in a 13 games and 13-day stretch. The last thing you want to do in that spot. Now, they were required to do it. They ended up having to do it anyways. But the last thing you want to do is go to the bullpen in the fifth inning against the Royals when your starting pitcher prior to that fifth inning was dealing. Pallante was great in the second and third and fourth innings. He was great, mowed through the Royals. And then it just all caught up to him like that. You have to push your starter. Pallante left that game with 71 pitches. Left it with 71. So you're telling me you wanted him to leave the game with like 50 pitches? Because the Cardinals were up like 7-2 at the time and you were worried about what was to come? You can't anticipate like that in the regular season. If that's a playoff game, totally agree. You have to manage that game like, uh-oh, this could turn quickly on him. Third time through, righty's coming up. Let's go. Let's get the righty up in the bullpen. This is the spot for them right now. Put out this fire. I could not agree with you more. First game in 13 days where you've got a 13 game in 13 No, absolutely not. That game was not lost by Ollie Marmol. That game was lost last night because your pitching did not have swing and miss stuff and the balls found the holes. I don't know what more you can ask for. Like that is not a managerial loss. That is a player execution loss. You didn't have the dudes last night. Point blank, period.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I think it'd be one thing if it was like their last series. I think they had the Thursday off and then they had the Monday off, right? If it's just 3 games in 3 days, yeah, you probably are a little bit more cautious, go to the bullpen a little bit quicker. Last night, you got to try and push them through it because you're in this stretch of 13 and 13 days and like 28 and 29 days. Like, you do not want to be burning out the bullpen, which I think there's a chance it's running on a little bit of fumes right now, but you definitely don't want to burn it out in game 1 of that. Look, man, Pallante's got to do his job. And you know what? Pallante didn't do it last night. And to be fair, neither did Madsen Leahy. But the guy that I would throw mostly under the bus would be Pallante in that situation. You've got a 7-2 lead. You cannot allow the Kansas City Royals back into that ball game. And sure, it wasn't like he was getting smoked all over the ballpark. The ball was hit hard. It was finding holes. Cardinals are going to live and die by this year.
They have to. They have no choice.
It's one thing if there's a defensive play that leads to something snowballing on them, because that is the one thing that cannot have lapses on this team. Because if you're going to get away without swing and miss, your defense has got to be one of the best in baseball. And to the Cardinals' credit, it has been to this point. Last night was just one of those where it was, hey, the ball's going to be sometimes where we're not at. And that's what happened to them. If it starts becoming a thing where it is, hey, the defense is making some bad plays, and then you've also got balls finding holes, then I will show more concern about, okay, well, the defense can't be doing this when they're not missing bats. Last night, to me, though it was ugly and it shouldn't happen, last night was one of those where it just comes down to, hey, you had some bad luck in that game.
I've said this before when the Cardinals win a game where it's like, that's what it should look like when the Cardinals win. Like, that's Cardinals baseball right there, right? We also have to say it on the other side. That's what it looks like this year when the Cardinals lose. That's what it's going to be. We talked about this a couple of years ago in a spring training game when people were freaking out. I think it was Steven Matz at the time. He had like 10 straight singles that were hit against them. That's just the way that this team is going to operate sometimes. It's not fun. Nobody enjoyed watching what took place last night, right? Like that fifth inning was brutal to watch. You almost felt bad for Pallante. Like, you wanted to go out there and give him a hug. You're like, man, I don't know what you're supposed to do here. You're not walking anybody. My big frustration with Pallante this year has been the walks. Same thing for Fetty. If you're going to pitch to contact, you can't then go out there and walk guys. It puts even more of an emphasis on your lack of a strength when it comes to swing and miss stuff. But he didn't walk anybody last night. It's just a bunch of dudes getting hits against him, which is how he's going to pitch. And he has to navigate that traffic. Earlier this season, he was getting into those bases loaded jams, and he got out of it. It was the Houdini, right? We said this a couple of different times with him. And he found a way to avoid giving up the big hit. Last night, he didn't. Last night, instead of that ball going straight at Brendan Donovan and being caught, it went straight to the middle of the field and it went in for a hit. Or it went straight down the line and it resulted in a double. Or it goes down the line and it results in a home run. Like, this is the difference between what was taking place earlier this season and what is taking place right now. Some of that maybe is like pitch sequencing. I don't know what's going on with Pallante. I know his sinker stinks right now. It's getting rocked by right-handed hitters. And I know that last year the sinker was the pitch that was working for him against righties. Those reverse splits, they're back. They're like 300 points difference in right-handed hitters versus left-handed hitters against Pallante. So I don't know what the fix is here. I do know the last 3 starts he's been not as good, and Ivan Herrera's been behind the plate in each of those last 3 starts.
Easy, Flaherty.
Yeah.
I'm just like, these are the kinds of things that I think you have to start wondering what's going on. Is his pitch sequencing becoming too obvious? Is like the sinker might not be the problem. It might be he's going to the sinker in obvious counts, right? Like these are the kinds of things behind the scenes. We just don't know. We don't have that information, but something's up with Pallante, and they have got to get this fixed.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning on that front, especially because you've just been so comfortable with this rotation that despite the contact that these guys have, you're still finding ways to win. I do think, though, that part of the concern, on top of Pallante, because it's a massive concern, part of the concern is some of these guys that you go to in stopping situations don't really have that for you lately. Like Steven Matz, I think he's given up 6 earned runs in his last 4 outings. Kyle Leahy has given up 6 earned runs in his last 5 outings. Like, these are 2 guys on top of Maton and Helsley that the Cardinals use in tight situations. You've got a 4-headed monster that can go out there and stop a snowball before it picks up. And although Pallante, the damage had already been done, Matz did come in and give up that big double to Pasquantino that kind of put the game on a retch, and that's the guy that has been a stopper for the Cardinals.
Yeah, when he comes into the game in that spot in the 5th inning, the Cardinals are up 7-5. They left that inning losing 8-7.
Pasquantino did not hit lefties very well.
No. That's a spot where he's got to get those dudes out. Steven Matz has to come in and put an end to that inning. He didn't. So it's on Pallante. Pallante had a 7-2 lead and gave it up in the 5th. And then it's on Steven Matz. Matz came in with a 7-5 lead, and he gave up 3 more runs to give up the lead in that spot. And the Royals left the inning winning. And then going into the next inning, right, like you've got Kyle Leahy who enters the game, and he gives up 2 more runs. So it's all of them. This was a true team effort last night by the pitching staff, and it was not good enough. None of them were good enough. They have to be a lot better. Somebody on the text line said, so we're supposed to just accept the loss? Yeah, like that's one of those losses you just accept and move on from. But it is another eye-opener because it does feel like a trend. It is now 3 of your last 4 games where your pitching has been like so bad that your offense cannot possibly overcome it. 11, 8, and 10 runs allowed. You can't expect your offense to do that. You can't. You hope that they will, but that cannot be the plan going in. And if this pitching does not start to improve, we're going to see a slide. I hope that's not the case. I want this team to be better than this. This was always the fear, though. The fear was, what if the pitching can't overcome the BABIP issues all season long? What if they are getting a little fortunate? Not lucky, but fortunate early on in the season. If that swings in the other direction and you start to get unlucky, what would that mean for the 2025 Cardinals? Hopefully we don't have to find out. We'll see tonight with Miles Michaelis on the mound if they're able to get this game in. I've got my fingers crossed. I'm supposed to go to this game tonight. I want to see it in person. I would like to watch Jack Caglione, but we'll see if they're able to get it in. I think the Cardinals would probably hope to avoid a doubleheader tomorrow when they have another, what would that be, 10 games in the next 10 days?
You get the extra pitcher in that sense, so great for the Cardinals.
Yeah, the problem is, like, who's that pitcher that you want to bring up right now?
Drew Rom is dealing, I've heard.
Because Graceffo just threw, I think, yesterday down in AAA. I think he got to like 20, 25 pitches, something like that, because they had McGreevy. By the way, McGreevy came out of his game early. That was planned. They want him to be the 6th starter. That's the expectation right now. So it won't be McGreevy who's coming up for that spot opportunity.
Give me Roy Croft.
Probably what you do.
Oh, God, it's Drew Rom's music.
Maybe. I don't know.
They require a 40-man move. Sorry.
I don't know what they do, but I think they will do everything they can possible to avoid playing a doubleheader.
Are you willing to go to the game at like 10 o'clock first pitch?
Because that's when it's going to happen.
I mean,
it's supposed to rain from 4 to 9:30.
You guys know how this works, right? They're not going to cancel the game ahead of time. They'll just put it in delay. Yeah. They'll tell you nothing about when it's going to be delayed, too. So we're going to go with a 2-year-old to Busch Stadium. We're just going to hang out there while nothing is happening on the field, and we'll see how long we end up making.
Fredbird's probably around.
In the first week that he's at daycare, so all of this is going to go super well. Nothing could possibly go wrong for me. Coming up in 15 minutes, the market has officially been set for the center position in the NHL this offseason. We'll tell you the latest on that in 15 minutes. But next, can Nolan Gorman capture this opportunity? Sure looks good with it last night. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care. I'm talking to the people now that are in the market for a new HVAC system because, look, we haven't hit those 90-degree days yet consistently, but they're coming. That hot summer in St. Louis is coming, and maybe you're in the market for a new HVAC system. And, look, the prices for those are never fun. The option to go that route is never fun, but it's why you need to use a company that you trust. And I have trusted Classic Air Care since 2016. Purchased a new HVAC system last year and got their advice on it. Had them come out, look at our older unit. And the best part about it is you get knowledgeable technicians that are honest. They walked through, they looked at our unit, they found some of the pieces that were still usable in good shape and other pieces that just weren't. So it saves you a little bit of money on the other side. But they've got financing options for you if you're in the market for a new HVAC system. The cool part about it, too, is you don't even need to have them come out. You can get an instant quote right away on the website and to give you an idea before you talk to Classic Air Care. It's an instant HVAC system quote on their website at classicaircare.com. You answer a couple of questions, and you're good to go from there. So whether you're in the market for a new one or you just want to maintain your old one, call Classic Air Care today or schedule online, classicaircare.com.
Be nice to see Gorman turn it on here. First pitch swing again. Fly ball deep center. Isbell going back. He's at the wall. Leaping try. And it is gone. Gorman's hit a home run to tie the game.
That's what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest. Nolan Gorman getting an opportunity right now. Ollie Marmol said the following about him yesterday prior to the game. This comes from Derek Gould's piece over in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Quote, I think if you allow him to play more, you'll see him take that next step on the gas a little bit, meaning more power. When I think of the contact that's being traded from power at the moment, especially if you're not playing every day, the more at-bats you get, the faster you allow yourself to drive. Gorman said that he has changed way too much in the past year or so by chasing results in the games, and the lack of playing time has actually freed him from overthinking about game moments. and focusing on improvements that he can make in the cage instead. Yesterday, you saw some of those improvements. He did connect, made contact, and then it went a really long way. That is the kind of at-bat that the Cardinals have been missing in recent weeks, really for the entirety of the season. His homer and Burleson's homer, I thought, and I tweeted this at the time, that's the kind of power that breaks a game wide open. It's what Texas had and what you lacked over the weekend. Unfortunately for the Cardinals yesterday, they didn't have the pitching that the Texas Rangers had for much of the weekend. Alas, here we are. Alex, what do you make of Gorman's opportunity that is taking place right now?
I think it's deserved for where the Cardinals are at. With no Jordan Walker, you got to get playing time, because the easier route would be just keep Herrera at DH. You can put Burleson in the outfield and keep Donovan at second base. But they're at least maneuvering this so that they can see more of Nolan Gorman, and it's the right path. Prior to Jordan Walker's injury, there was no reason for Nolan Gorman to see the lineup. He wasn't hitting. Frankly, Alec Burleson was getting better at the plate, and that was the left-handed bat that deserved to be in there. But now, yeah, give him some runway. It was a good game for him. The biggest moment, though, and maybe this is on me and I shouldn't think this way, the biggest moment for him that I saw was there at the end of the game, to where you had the opportunity to at least make some noise and you struck out there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to bring it up. It's part of the story.
But it's one of those growing moments. We said the same thing with Jordan Walker. Earlier in the season, I'm thinking, I don't care if the dude strikes out, put him in that position so that he takes the at-bat and you can try and build off of it. And despite that at-bat, Nolan Gorman still went 2 for 4 and was the reason that the Cardinals tied the game early on. So I like that they're doing this with Gorman. I hope that they do this until Jordan Walker comes back. But they also have to be honest with it that, look, if it does not look good, if this was just a one-off and the next 5 starts he goes through 0 for 4s, you have to go back to the way you were treating this lineup.
It's weird with Gorman because, like, he's walking more, he's striking out less, the swing and miss is down. Like, all of these things that we were asking for earlier in his career, it's like, okay, they found it. This is what we were missing. But the good stuff that he had early on in his career is now missing. Like, the power is gone. The hits, like, just putting the ball in play is not resulting in any hits right now because he's not hitting it hard enough. They're gone. So I don't really know what to make of this. The changes that he has incorporated into his swing, they're working to get more contact. But if they're coming at the expense of the thing that you need from Gorman, I don't know really what to do with that, because the whole value in Nolan Gorman's bat is big man hit ball hard and it goes far.
Well, yeah, it doesn't benefit the team if he doesn't play, if he doesn't hold the value that the reason you put him in the lineup is there for. Then what's the point of having him in the lineup?
It reminds me a little bit of when Matt Carpenter made all of the changes to his swing, right? He goes from being this guy that puts the ball in play all the time, gets on base at a really high clip, and then hits like 55 doubles in a season. Mm-hmm. And then for a season, he became a 36 home run player. It's like, oh boy, okay, like this is the ceiling of what Matt Carpenter could be as a player. The problem is, it felt as though he never really adjusted after that, and then he just became a pure power hitter that didn't hit for average at the same level anymore, didn't have the same number of doubles. It was just hit the ball in the air and see how far it can go, and that leaves a lot to be desired at times. And it almost feels like the opposite adjustment is now taking place with Gorman, where he is taking some off of his swing, which will allow for more contacts to take place, and there's value in that. But is it enough value to overcome the lack of power? That's what I want to find out during this runway that could exist. There was a report yesterday, I think it was on the broadcast, where they said Jordan Walker, while taking swings off of the tee, I think yesterday, felt a little bit more pain in his wrist. So we'll see if he's able to actually come back after 10 days or if this is going to be a little bit more of an absence. But in this opportunity, let's see what it looks like for Gorman, man. I would like to see a little bit more of him in the lineup. That doesn't mean every day, but when Arenado's out, put Gorman in. If you have a day where Herrera is at catcher as he was yesterday, put Gorman in at DH. I'd like to see Gorman get a couple of opportunities at second. Like when there is a lefty on the mound, Burleson out, Donovan to left field, maybe you have Gorman take those at-bats against the left-handed starters. He's better against lefties than Burleson is. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some opportunity here. I would like to see what he has in there, because the one thing this offense has really been lacking this season is power. And the guy that has the biggest opportunity to provide that, if he's capable, and I don't know at this point if he is or not, but I'd like to see it, is Nolan Gorman. He's the one guy that still has that untapped potential from a power perspective.
Yeah, he's the guy that I said has 40 home run power, and I truly believe that's in that bat if these changes haven't taken that away, right? Like if they're trying to make him more of a contact-oriented hitter, okay, that's fine, but what does that power ultimately get to? Because I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to hit for average in his career. So I understand you had to cut down the strikeout rate. Like his strikeout rate last year was unsustainable. So it's a good thing that they've cut down on that, and he's trying to get more contact. But if he doesn't bring power, I'm with you. Like I don't know what his value is to the team, because it's not like he's a Gold Glover. He's a fine defender, but he's not that. And he's the guy that should be the one that lifts your ceiling from your slug perspective. And right now he's not doing that. Now maybe that changes. Like we'll see. Ollie says like, hey, well, now that he's hopefully getting runway, maybe that means he's more of a free swinger at this point and he brings more power. I hope that's the case, because if you're trying to change him to more of a contact, average-oriented guy and replacing that with slug, I just don't think that really maximizes the value of a guy like Nolan Gorman.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You guys can get involved via the YouTube chat as well at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. That is where Adam, Buck, Buckhog, Eric, MD 2020 and iRock are all hanging out today. The Puddle Under the Piddles is over there as well, and DJ Patty Cakes. We got lots of action going on over in the YouTube chat. You can jump in over there, chime in at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL.
A lot of names.
We got questions and answers in 15 minutes, but next, Alex, some big news today in the NHL. A center has signed with his team. His market rate sets what the market is going to be for the rest of these centers. We'll tell you what it is next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendricks here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Royals yesterday 10-7. Game 2 of the 3-game set is tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis will be on the mound for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals as the Edmonton Oilers take on the Florida Panthers. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with puck drop at 7. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. SeaMalondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, the market has been set for centers in the NHL this offseason with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Brock Nelson, the first one off of the board, Alex. He is signing an extension with the Colorado Avalanche. According to Frank Saravalli, it is a 3-year deal worth $7.5 million. A little bit more than what we were previously expecting, but not by a lot. The anticipation was about 3/7 on most of the projection networks that we've been talking about. So they basically pay an extra $500,000 a year, $1.5 million over the course of the 3-year deal to avoid July 1st. They avoid him going to market and getting into some kind of a bidding war, and Brock Nelson sticks with Colorado. Good signing by them. Think it makes a lot of sense. If I was in their shoes, I probably would have done this. I do think this has a lot of trickle-down effect. One, what the hell is Minnesota going to do now? Two, this is now the market for those mid-tier veteran free agent centers that we've been talking about.
And 3, what the hell is Colorado going to do now? They got $1.2 million in cap space, and they've got a lot more positions that need to be filled.
So let's start with the Blues side of things, right? Because they're the ones that are affected by this with the center market. I would imagine, well, this is the absolute floor that I would take if I'm John Tavares.
Yeah.
I'm not taking less than $7.5 million unless I just really want to stay in Toronto. That would be the only scenario where I could see him taking less than this.
Yeah, and I think Tavares is getting significantly less than this in Toronto. But yeah, and I'm looking at the years that he just got, Nelson, if I'm Tavares, and saying, all right, I want 3 or 4 years as
Absolutely.
well.
The next thing is, I would imagine if you're signing Sam Bennett this offseason, it's $9 million or more.
At minimum. You're not going below $9 million, unless you're the Florida Panthers, because I think that the Florida Panthers can be a discount team if Bennett wants to stay there. But yeah, if I'm Bennett and I just saw this from Brock Nelson, I performed better in the playoffs and I'm younger, $9 million is my starting point.
And last thing, on the lower tier of free agents, so you're talking about the Donatos, Pius Suter, those kind of guys, I would imagine you're talking 5+.
Yeah. To me, this is a Chandler Stevenson offseason. This is where teams are going to overpay for the position that is probably the thinnest, which is the center position.
Especially middle six.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for him.
I mean, you're going to overpay to get a guy because of the bidding wars and because of Seattle, for example. They know that they can't compete with the Vegases and all of these other teams, so you have to overpay to get that guy interested in your team. It's why I'm staying the hell away from this right now. I especially the trickle-down effect from Brock Nelson. Now Minnesota's going to probably overpay to get a centerman because they were desperate for that center position. So this, to me, screams a lot of teams that are desperate to fill spots, and you are going to have to overpay or give multiple years or give no move clauses out to make that player interested in your team, which is a dangerous game to play.
All right, so let's expand this to the division, because this is really affecting both Colorado and Minnesota. Everybody expected Minnesota to be in play, and not just in play, to be the destination, honestly, for Brock Nelson. He's from the area, has family that played for Minnesota before, if I'm not mistaken, and it almost felt like, okay, well, he's going to sign a 3x7 in Minnesota. What else is going to happen this offseason? That's the starting point. Now what in free agency? Everything else started from there. That's obviously not going to happen. So Minnesota now has to pivot. They've got to find their guy in free agency. I don't know what that's going to be, but it sure seems like they would like to add a little bit more size down the middle. Could that be Sam Bennett? Do they become the mystery team in the Sam Bennett conversations? Possibly. Could John Tavares be the almost one-for-one pivot? Similar age, similar terms, similar AAV. They just say, okay, well, Nelson's not an option. Tavares now becomes the guy. I suppose that's possible as well. Do they aim a little bit lower? Do they become a team maybe that's in on the Pius Suiters of the world? Or do they go to the trade market? And maybe that is where they end up trading Marco Rossi in a deal as a package for somebody that is a little bit higher up. Could they literally trade with Colorado to extract Ross Colton or Martin Necas, who is seemingly available as well? There are a lot of tentacles that come off of this Brock Nelson signing with Colorado, not signing with Minnesota, and it all affects this division and how these teams are going to look heading into 2025.
Well, and especially because some of these teams are, they're at a pivot point right now with their teams. Like Colorado, I think, is a perfect example. The reason they did this with Nelson is, their team's going to look very different in a few years. And so they're trying to capitalize on this as much as possible. Winnipeg just won the Stanley Cup. They got to decide what to do with Nikolai Ehlers and Gabe Velarde and Kyle Connor. Dallas is already dealing with their ish with their coach / their goaltender.
Jason Robertson being gone. They've got a bunch of free agents this offseason.
Minnesota's got all of this money to do, but you know what you don't want to do if you're Minnesota? You don't want to get kid crazy and start spending all of the money and be like, oh, I've got $15 million. Let's go get 3 guys. And then you put yourself in a bad position moving forward.
Utah wants to make a splash. It sure sounds like they would love nothing more than to go sign Mitch Marner this offseason.
The part that's now very fascinating is what you mentioned, BK, because now all of these teams, I don't think are going to go free agent swimming. I think they're going to go trade looking. And they've got a lot of good assets. Minnesota, you mentioned, they've got Rossi to deal, and they've got draft capital. Dallas has got Jason Robertson to deal if they want to make an upgrade elsewhere. Colorado's got Martin Necas to deal if they want to make some type of move to make their team better.
And that doesn't necessarily mean Martin Necas for that player. It could be Martin Necas goes elsewhere, he gets draft capital, and then that draft capital is sent for that center that they would like to add.
And that's why, the Blues don't have that type of capital to trade, because people bring up Kyrou all the time. We've talked Kyrou. You're not trading Kyrou unless you're getting significantly better. And some of these teams, they're not trying to get significantly better. They'll make a move to just get a good piece and open up some cap space to use it elsewhere. So I think this puts it in a little bit more of a fascinating lens, because now if teams are looking for middle six centermen, and that's what the desire is when a market is that thin, now you just vert to the trade market. But I also think the other side of this coin, teams also try and get overly aggressive in this situation, and sometimes they make dumb moves. And dumb moves can benefit teams that are ready to pounce. And that's where I feel like Doug Armstrong always has the advantage on teams in the NHL.
I wonder if many of these teams are going to be looking at the top of the market. So Minnesota immediately goes to the top of the market, whether that's Bennett, John Tavares, whoever you want it to be. Trade market, top of the market as well. And maybe what you can do if you're in Doug Armstrong's shoes is you make somebody that's in that second tier feel like they're at the top of the market. You immediately go to them and say, you're a top priority. We're not even talking to Sam Bennett. We're not talking to John Tavares. We're not interested in them. We want day one to sign Pius Suter. We want day one to sign Trent Frederick, whoever that guy is that they are targeting. And they're able to avoid getting into a bidding war because they capitalized immediately on one of those players. This is honestly kind of the Cardinals' typical MO. They go into the offseason and they start shopping in the second tier while other teams are shopping in that top tier. It can get increasingly frustrating when you're watching the Cardinals operate that way, but it's a philosophy that can work, especially in an offseason like this where so many teams are desperate for that high-end talent. And honestly, it's a pretty good free agent market for high-end talent compared to what it typically is.
I think the other route with this, too, is you try and make a trade sooner rather than later. Maybe it seems like you're overpaying for it now, but you do that before another team comes in with a better offer with better players. And I don't know if the Blues have the capital for that. I do know they have a lot of prospects in their pipeline that a lot of teams covet, but you got to find the right team that's in that window that's willing to trade for a guy that's a couple of years away.
You get a first-round pick.
Yeah, and the problem with trading a Marco Rossi or trading a Martin Necas or trading a Jason Robertson is if you're the team on the receiving end of that, you get 1 year. You get 1 year for these guys, maybe not even 1 year.
Well, Rossi's got the RFA status, so you could potentially. I'm guessing any team that trades for him will re-sign him.
Correct.
Extension, but
unless Rossi says I don't want to sign.
Possibly. Necas is different because he's a UFA after next year, so there's no leverage.
And Robertson's got 1 year of RFA status before he's a UFA. So it really comes down to how desperate are teams willing to make trades. We saw Rantanen get flipped for Necas because of the whole contract negotiations.
Let's stick with Necas. We saw this on the text line, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Guys, can the Blues trade for Martin Necas? Do they have enough to do so? Alex, this is one of those hypothetical scenarios where I just don't know. I don't know what it would take to trade for Martin Necas because the The Avs, after signing Brock Nelson, are in a really tricky cap situation.
No, you wish they had an RFA right now because it is offer sheet city in Colorado.
They have $1 million left, and they currently have 5 defensemen signed. They have 12 forward signed. They have to sign more players in order to roster a team for next year, and they have $1 million to do so. So as currently constructed, they cannot do that. They will not have enough players to take the ice on opening night. So they've got to figure something out. They have to make moves. My guess is they're going to try to trade Ross Colton this offseason. I don't know that he makes sense for the Blues. He's basically become a winger for them, and he has not become the player that I hoped he would be. He's $4 million. He's got a modified no trade. I don't think that's the guy. Martin Necas has 0 no trade protection. He's $6.5 million for this upcoming year. He was the prize player that they got in return for one of the best players in the NHL in Mikko Rantanen. So you can't just give up on that guy, but it didn't seem to go great down the stretch. He doesn't seem super happy with the situation there. I think he would like to be a center still. He's only 26 years old. Do you think that's something the Blues could consider and should consider?
I think they could consider it. It's rare that you see trades go down in the same division because teams just are hesitant for that. But, I mean, Doug Armstrong is ruthless. I don't think he really cares if you're giving up a guy that they're completely out on. I don't know if it makes sense, though. Like, I like Martin Necas. I really do. 26 years old. He's got the offense. He's basically been a point per game player for the last few years. He's not great defensively.
He's bad.
But he's really good offensively, and you make up for it there. Here's the part that I just don't know if it makes sense. If you get him, you're probably hoping to lock him up long-term. And the long-term play here would probably be, well, you'll be a winger when Dvorsky's ready. Well, this is now 2 places that he's been that he is frustrated because they've put him at wing when he wants to be a center.
And they're good situations. These are not like poorly run organizations. Just the Carolina Hurricanes, who were just in the Eastern Conference Finals and have been there for like 12 consecutive seasons. And Colorado, who's one of the most well-run and like best organizations in the NHL.
He was
right
playing
now.
a wing with Nathan McKinnon. Like, ask me what you'd rather do in your career. That's it at 26 years
Be
old.
a center for Buffalo.
But, like, his numbers, like,
I feel where he goes.
if you look at his face-off numbers, like, this past couple of years, he's been bad. Now, he's been good at times, but he's also been awful at times.
And he's just bad defensively. So it's more than just the face-off.
And as a
He's bad
centerman,
defensively as well.
you have to be good defensively, especially in a Jim Montgomery role where if you're not taking care of your own zone, you're not going to play at the center position. And think of the way that Doug Armstrong described what they would be looking for, a 200-foot offensive weapon. So I think Martin Necas is sexy in terms of the number that he's put up every season, his age, and how he fits into the team. I don't think this makes sense for probably what you'd have to trade to Colorado to get that player.
I think ideally he would be a guy that was already in Carolina, and this is the offseason where maybe you could make that move, right? Yeah. Carolina decides to move him because they're not going to re-sign him, and you go that direction. It's going to be a lot of money. He's going to cost probably $9 million in free agency, I would imagine, or he's just going to go to market. And you can't trade for Martin Necas if he's on a 1-year deal. I don't think this is a team that can be in that situation.
Yeah.
So I don't think it makes sense for the Blues. I would love for it to. It's just not the offseason. It's not. If they didn't have Dylan Holloway, if Holloway was never signed last offseason as an extension or as a offer sheet candidate, I think Martin Necas would make a lot of sense for the Blues. But they did that. And so now you have Dylan Holloway, who honestly, if you just told me, hey, you can have either Martin Necas or Dylan Holloway for the next 5 years, I think I'd take Holloway.
Oh, I would take Holloway. I think
Given
Holloway
the way
could
that
be
the team
Necas.
is constructed.
Yeah.
Point production, I think they're similar. And defensively, Holloway is much more responsible. He's better on the forecheck. He fits with what the Blues are trying to be more than what Martin Necas would. So the Blues are in a good spot here. And now you re-sign Holloway, and that becomes what you could have had in Necas, and you didn't have to give up as much.
Yeah,
money.
and he's going to be cheaper than what Necas is going to command. Like, I think Necas is going to be $9.5 million. It sounds like his viewpoint is. But, I mean, I think the better path still for the Blues is just find a middle six center. Doesn't have to be a number 2 center like Martin Necas would be considered. Go find a guy that can be a number 3 for you, and in a spot, if Schenn gets hurt or if Schen's having a down spout, then you put that guy in the second center spot, and he can work for it there. I don't think you should go this aggressive because I don't think that player makes the sense for you and changes the dynamic of your team.
Have you seen the new Penguins coach, Dan Muse?
Yeah, I've seen him.
Does he look like an older version of Draco Malfoy to you?
Who?
Have you seen Harry Potter?
Come on, man.
No.
You haven't
you
even
serious?
read Harry Potter?
You've never seen any of the Harry Potter movies?
Haven't seen them.
What's
haven't read
worse,
them.
me starting the Star Wars saga now, or T-Bone never having seen Harry Potter?
The Star Wars one.
You think?
That one's been around
Yeah,
since like the
probably
70s.
the Star
That's probably
Wars
fair.
one,
I mean,
yeah.
Harry Potter was like big when you were a kid, though.
Harry Potter was big when I
You were
was
like
a kid.
prime audience for Harry Potter.
But I didn't like reading, and like that was like
There were movies.
To be fair for T-Bone, like I'd never seen any of the Lord of the Rings stuff because I was just never into that genre.
I think that's
a big
different
deal.
than Harry Potter.
Oh, I
actually.
think
See,
Lord
I
of the
think
Rings
it's
is
kind of
bigger
the
than
same.
Harry Potter.
Well, and
No?
I kind of think it's like a different genre, but it's like it's its own niche, you know?
Yeah,
Like hobbits and versus wizards.
yeah. I think T-Bone just completely missing the boat on Harry Potter is every bit as bad as me.
Dude, Star Wars has been around since the 80s.
No, listen, I know it's like one of the
Earlier.
biggest things since like World War II in terms of like what it meant for society, whatever. Anyway, so Draco Malfoy.
It does look like a bald Draco Malfoy. It also looks like a guy that when I turn on Jeopardy at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, oh, hey, Dan Muse is on again.
That's so that's the new head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Riddle me this. How
Dan
does
Muse.
how does a 42-year-old tell a 37-year-old Sidney Crosby what to do when that 42-year-old had never played a game in the NHL?
I mean, Ollie Marmol was hired as the Cardinals manager when they had Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols, and Adam Wainwright, all of whom were older than him. So similar.
Do your job.
I get it, man.
Hey, if you're good, you're
Wild.
good at it, he'll listen.
Also, has
Right?
never been a head coach at the AHL or the NHL level. His head coaching experience was in 2016 when he was a part of a U.S. national development team. It tells you exactly what Pittsburgh's doing. Pittsburgh's going
for it.
Hey, Sid, I know that you want to be here, man, and we love you for that, but this is going to look ugly for a few years because now we've got a younger coach that's going to try and embrace the youth movement.
The general manager of the Oklahoma City Thunder, his name is Sam Presti. He was hired in 2007. At the time, they were the Seattle Sonics. How old do you think Sam Presti was when he was hired for that job?
He's been around forever. This is a BK game, so I'll say like 32.
31. He was 31 years old when he got that job. He was 23 when he got his first job as an assistant GM with the Spurs. The Spurs started their run. He was the assistant GM. He was the one that like brought analytics to the San Antonio Spurs.
So he ruined basketball.
For sure.
Got it.
He actually made it beautiful. That the Spurs played an unbelievable style of basketball. But he got his first job at 31. I mentioned that because like there were guys on the team that were older than him, and he was operating the entire team. So yeah,
Age
it's
has been a number.
Apparently. I hope he's a wizard when it comes to the coaching strategy to help Pittsburgh make that run.
T-Bone will never meet him, never know anything about him because he's a wizard. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers coming up next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 314. Guys, what is your pitch for someone to start watching, Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Well, Star Wars, as we just discussed in the commercial break, Princess Leia and her Jabba the Hutt.
What I did not realize, as I'm currently going through my Star Wars watching experience. We've watched, we started with Andor, then we went to Rogue One, and then we watched 4 and 5, because that's like the timeline of how it should go. We're on to 6 right now. We're like halfway through. As you know, Alex, when you're watching with a kid at home, it becomes a little bit different of a process. You like stop your movie halfway through and then continue.
It's like a week's worth to try and watch one movie.
I didn't realize how goofy the 4, 5, and 6 were. Like they're kind of they're silly. The Star Wars movies are silly for the most part. And I've enjoyed that experience with it.
What made them silly to you?
What do you mean? I mean, like even a lot of the dialogue is like, it's silly.
Oh, the dialogue's not very well written. Like George Lucas is not known for his writing skills.
I find a lot of what I've seen so far to be like goofy. It does not take itself very seriously. I don't find that like a bad thing. I find it kind of amusing. It's an enjoyable watch.
I've never heard someone that has like enjoyed Star Wars go, I like it because it's goofy.
I didn't either. And that's why I wasn't
under
saying
the age of 10.
I just like what made it silly, because like for me, I think the first thing I thought, and mind you, I
do not take it seriously. Maybe that's my
see the way you're describing it is the way that I would describe that the Batman movies when it was who was the director when it was Batman and Robin with Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. Those like that's what I'm picturing you're viewing it as, and it's like those movies are like this is just a joke. Like, I don't know. I
don't view it that way. I don't view it as a joke. I view it as like there's a wink and a nod almost to the audience in some of these scenes. I like it. I enjoy it.
Maybe. Those were my favorite ones. 4, 5, and 6. 6, as we were just talking about. Like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi were the two that I like. Probably
Return
like
of the Jedi
most.
Has been my favorite thus far. Rogue One was my favorite movie. Some of that is just because it's
the best. Yeah.
It's recent, and so it probably speaks more to like visually it's appealing to my eyes as somebody that grew up in more of the technological age, but I've enjoyed it. It's been really fun. I do think Harry Potter is a really good series. I enjoyed Harry Potter as a viewing experience, but it's not like my favorite thing in the world. So
yeah, I mean,
personally, I just think that there is so much cultural impact from Star Wars that I feel like I have missed out on over my life by not having seen it.
Yeah.
That if you were going to suggest, hey, watch one versus the other, I think there is more to Star Wars than to Harry Potter.
And I think the thing about Star Wars is like you get to see the lineage of growth in films going from like special effects, what it was then versus now. Harry Potter, I think the selling point on Harry Potter is like if you just like to just veg out and watch something and just follow along with a trilogy, like not a trilogy, but how many, 7 or 8 of them? It's just a movie you could sit back and just follow along with. Like I don't think there's a real selling point unless you read the books.
You get lost.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of any of these things, right? Sci-fi is you get lost into whatever it is that these people are taking you to. And that's supposed to be what movies are, but you know,
I was a weird one
with a different conversation for a different day on where the movie genre has gone.
I preferred Harry Potter over Star Wars growing up. But I like read the books first and then the movies came out. So I saw the movies. I stopped after like 2, Harry Potter 2 or Harry Potter 3. And then I just didn't pay any attention to it until I met my wife. She was big into Harry Potter. And then I got back into it and it was fun. So,
all right. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We've had a few of those texts, as you could probably expect, from the 314. Guys, with the Cardinals' loss last night, they are now 5 games out of first place. Do you think that the Cubs are about to run away with the division, or can one of the Cardinals, Brewers, or Reds realistically still catch them?
I don't think the Reds can catch them. I don't know. I don't know how sustainable the Cubs offense is, but for right now, I can't deny it, just like I also can't deny how the Cards offense has been good. So I don't see how anybody catches the Cubs. Unless the Cubs just take a complete faceplant, nosedive, or an injury happens. And if you're the Cubs, you have to imagine they're going to make some type of trade at the deadline.
I'm not convinced the Cubs are running away with this just yet. I think what's important in the context when you're looking at what the Cubs have done recently is look at their schedule, right? They just ran through a gauntlet of cupcakes, and they took care of business. They're still in that. I think we're going to know more here in the next, 2 2 to 3 weeks because now their schedule shifts back to where they're going to Detroit, they're going to Philly. They will see Milwaukee, who's playing better. They will see Seattle and the Astros, and of course the Cardinals. I don't think they will run away with it. I think they are just taking advantage of their schedule while the Cardinals are starting to hit a little bit of a lull in their play.
They've been pretty similar to the Cardinals against the best teams that they've gone up against to that point, T-Bone. They won 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers once, but then they lost both of those games that were over in Japan, and then eventually they won 2 more against the Dodgers, including one that went into extra innings. Most of those games were close. They won 1 out of 3 against San Diego on the road. They won 1 out of 3 against Philadelphia, but they had one of those losses in extra innings. So, like, they've played a lot of really close games, close series against the better teams in the National League. They lost 2 out of 3 against the New York Mets, much like the Cardinals have had their struggles at times against the New York Mets. And even their losses were big. Win was really close. They won by a run. When they start, I say all that to say this. They've got Detroit coming up. They've got Philly coming up. They've got Milwaukee. They've got Cardinals. They've got Houston. Those are the games where you'll start to find out where these two teams are at. Ultimately, it comes down to what we said yesterday. You've got 7 games head-to-head against the Cubs prior to the All-Star break. About to find out. If you end up losing 5 of those 7 games, I think you're probably in a spot where you're unlikely to catch them.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult to do so, especially prior to the deadline, which is ultimately where the Cardinals have to make big decisions. The Cardinals season is like 2 months shorter than what the actual season is, because the Cardinals have to make choices by July 31st. That's where things go into a fork in the road moment. Do I think the Cardinals are likely to catch them? No, I wouldn't bet on it. I think the Cubs are better. But can they? Sure. Cubs could, or the Cardinals could, or the Brewers could, in my opinion.
I think the Cards just need to find a way to close the gap on the Cubs before they play against each other and then win that series. You do that, then you're sitting pretty.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Answer this one real quick before we go to break. Guys, any thoughts on signing Trevor Bauer? He could potentially come back and help the Cardinals rotation.
Hasn't Trevor Bauer been bad?
Yeah. No. Nope.
I don't know why Trevor Bauer continues to come up like this is the Cardinals solution.
We're multiple years into this thing now, man. If nobody signed him previously, they're not signing him now.
Cardinals exclusively sign guys that want to be Cardinals and are the image of Cardinals. That's not Trevor Bauer.
They have said publicly, not happening. So if you want him to, cool, that's great for you, but it's not going to happen. Coming up next, Andre Pallante and Michael McGreevy should be competing for the final spot in the rotation. I think that's probably going to take place over the next 2 weeks or so. But no, I don't think any of you calling for Andre Pallante to be removed from the equation in this rotation, I don't think that's particularly likely. We'll explain why next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. I've seen a lot of calls, whether it's the text line, YouTube chat, on social media, certainly last night as that fifth inning was taking place. We'll just send Andre Pallante down to AAA. It's time for Michael McGreevy to take his spot in the rotation. And Alex, if they weren't in this spot in the schedule, I would be more than happy to have that conversation because I do think it is a worthwhile conversation to be had. Andre Pallante has not been good in his last 6 starts. I went into this last night. If you just look at like what he did in the first half of his season versus the second half, first 6 starts, he had a 4.1 ERA. Last 6 starts, 5.7 ERA. Now the peripherals are not all that different. It's really the sinker. First 6 starts, sinker was thrown 70 pitches, 222 average, 278 slugging percentage against. Last 6 starts, sinker, 438 batting average against, 688 slugging percentage against. It has more than doubled in both the average and the slugging percentage against. That is the pitch that unlocked him as a starter a year ago. It is also the pitch that is unraveling him as a starter in 2025. So we could have a conversation about him going down and McGreevy coming up so Pallante can work on that stuff away from the pressure of the big leagues. But this is not the time to do it, because McGreevy is already about to get an opportunity as your 6th starter. So now what we're really talking about is Drew Rom, Gordon Graceffo, those guys taking Andre Pallante's spot in the rotation, and I have zero confidence that would be better. In fact, I have a pretty high level of confidence it would be worse. So what I do think is reasonable, Alex, over the next 2 weeks, as you potentially see 1 or maybe 2 starts by Michael McGreevy at the major league level as the 6th starter, I do think he should be competing right now with Pallante. And whenever they decide to go away from this 6th starter after the 13 games in 13 days, that's when you make your decision. And if Pallante has been outperformed by McGreevy, who I think is starting against the Dodgers, so it's not going to be an easy task for him.
Welcome back.
If McGreevy outperforms him, McGreevy stays, Pallante goes down. That's the decision that you make as an organization. You just flip those two. But until then, there's really no decision to make. Your hands are kind of tied right now.
Yeah, if I'm doing this math right, you'd get to see 2 more starts from Pallante, right? 1 against the Blue Jays and then 1 against the Brewers before you get to that decision. Yep. If they kind of go that route.
Looks that way.
And if you get 2 starts from Michael McGreevy, I think you nailed it. If I'm the Cardinals, I can't do this now because there are 0 other options for me to bring up into a start situation. Matz isn't stretched out enough, and frankly, he's going through it a little bit right now. To use anybody other than Michael McGreevy if you're going to this 6-man rotation. And you kind of need to go to that 6-man rotation because your bullpen might be donezo by the time this 13 games and 13-day stretch. I think you're going to look at this with the unspoken word of Andre Pallante, you're going to get 2 more starts. Michael McGreevy, you're going to get 2 starts. Whoever comes out on top of this looking like they're more consistent, you're going to be the one that stays up and the other goes down to Memphis to work on stuff. And that's what makes the most sense right now. Pallante has scuffled. He's lost those pitches that have made him effective. Michael McGreevy has done well in Memphis. And if both of these guys are in the same rotation for the next 13 days and you get the same amount of starts, whoever looks more ready for the major league level gets to stay at the major league level. This is the internal competition that was supposed to happen this season for the Cardinals. And it's not a bad thing if it happens to Pallante and he has to go down and work on stuff, as long as he takes that the right way. But yeah, it makes 0 sense to do that now because McGreevy's going to be starting in the next couple of days and you're going to need Pallante.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Look, I think we call up McGreevy, you put him into that rotation, you see what he's got, and then you just decide after that. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better kind of one-to-one comparison, right? Like McGreevy's going up against the Dodgers. Well, if McGreevy's better against the Dodgers than what we see like from Pallante against Toronto, for example. Yeah, there's no contest, right? The Dodgers are one of the best lineups in baseball, and if McGreevy pitches well against those guys, yeah, he's the guy there. And the best part is it's not like this is a conversation of, oh, well, we got to make a decision of win now versus, well, also providing runway. Either way, whoever ends up winning, if this becomes a competition, runway's created for a young guy. It's just a matter of which young guy, right? Either Pallante
100%.
or Michael McGreevy. It's not like you're blocking somebody for a veteran pitcher that's been down in the minor leagues, that's been around the block. No, this is either way, you get the best of both worlds. Okay, well, we get to try and we're going to put in a guy that we think gives us our best chance to win every time through on his rotation. And then also it's a young guy no matter what. And we're allowing this guy to grow and develop with our major league staff. It would not be the worst case scenario in the world if it ends up becoming that Michael McGreevy outduels Andre Pallante. They say, hey, Pallante, go down. We saw the benefits Andre Pallante had by going down last year. Something's just a little off with that sinker right now. Maybe he can refix that, and boom, he can come back up, still serves his depth for you. It's not the end of Andre Pallante if he is the one that ends up going down.
I think we need to take the Drew Rum option out of the. Like, the dude had Tommy John last year, and he's only pitched like, what, 13 innings?
It's not happening.
He's not coming up. Quinn Matthews isn't stretched out because of the injury that happened earlier in the season. So then the next one you're talking about is TK Roby, and I don't even think that's a conversation
piece. He's not on the 40-man right now. Like, the guys that are currently on your 40-man that could be options for you. Ryan Fernandez, that's a reliever. Gordon Graceffo, he's now a reliever. Tink Kins, he's not ready. Michael McGreevy, we just talked about him. Riley O'Brien, reliever. Sim Robersa, he's, I think, hurt.
And I thought he was a reliever.
Yeah, I think Roberse blew out his arm.
And TK Roby, he's down in Double-A. Chris Roycroft, he's a reliever. So TK Roby is the only guy right now that is on the 40-man that is, technically speaking, stretched out, has been performing this year, could be an option for you in your rotation. He's in Double-A. He's not ready. He's thrown 40 innings this year. He threw 40 innings the year before and 60 innings the year prior. He's thrown 100 innings total over the last 2 seasons. He is currently trying to get himself stretched out down at the Double-A level. And if you look at some of the pitch counts for him, he has not been throwing a ton of pitches so far this year because he's coming off of a bunch of injuries. Cardinals don't have options. This has been the case for them all year. It's why they didn't trade Fetty. It's why they haven't done anything with Miles Michaelis. It's why you're seeing Andre Pallante as a part of the rotation. It's why Matthew Liberatore, honestly, was a part of the rotation. And it's why Steven Matz is still here. All of this is to give them coverage because they were terrified of what they did not have in AAA. They did not have options other than Michael McGreevy. It's also why McGreevy is not here right now. Because if you did pull McGreevy up and you, like, for example, put Andre Pallante into your bullpen, well, now you have nobody to be able to go to in the event that anybody goes down to injury, or when you get into situations like they're in right now where they want to use the 6-man rotation to keep their starters on the same rest schedule that they had been on when they were going through these off days. So long story short, they need Pallante to get this figured out. And if that ends up taking place at the big league level, great. If it has to require a stint in AAA, fine. And that becomes the opportunity for McGreevy, and I hope he runs away with it. And you never look back, and then it's about how do they get Andre Pallante back up. He's crushing it down in AAA. There's no spot for him here. That'd be best case scenario for the Cardinals. But there's real tangible differences between what took place for Pallante last year as a starter and what is taking place for him right now. This is not just bad luck. The quality of the contact against him is harder. It is worse. It is creating more damage than it did a year ago. Never been a strikeout guy. Always had a bit of a walk issue for him. What's happening right now, though, is guys are now doing damage. Last year, the slugging percentage, expected slug against Andre Pallante was .328. This year, .460. That is a different pitcher with vastly different results. They've got to get him under control. I understand the calls to send him to AAA. Right now, that's just not something that's realistic for where the Cardinals are at in their schedule. Coming up in 15 minutes, how should the Blues approach their blue line going into this offseason? And how does Justin Falk impact those decisions? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. More likely to happen is coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us a scenario. We'll tell you which one is, two scenarios. We'll tell you which one's more likely here on BK and Ferrario. All right, boys, more likely to happen. The Cardinals win 4 of their next 5 against the Royals and the Dodgers, or the Cardinals win 0 of their next 5 against the Cardinals and the Dodgers. Cardinals are swept by the Royals and Dodgers, or the Cardinals win 4 of the next 5 games. Which one's more likely?
Jeez. I think they win the next 2 versus the Royals, but I don't know how comfortable I am saying the Dodgers. For the struggles, at least we've seen over the last couple of series, I'll say it's more likely they get swept by the next 5. I don't see how you win 4 of the next 5 versus the Dodgers offense and the way that your pitching has been going.
I think I'm with you because I just can't see a scenario where they win 4 of the next 5. I agree. They can beat the Royals for the next 2, in theory. I've been watching the Dodgers play the Mets, then I watched them play the Yankees over the week, and dude, good luck. When you pitch to contact against that lineup, so yeah, more likely they end up losing 5 straight or 6 straight, I guess it'd be.
I think it's the 6 straight losses as well. Winning 4 out of 5 in this stretch is going to be really tough, man. Really, really tough. Tonight, if you play baseball, you're going up against a guy the last time around, he shut you down. And against the Dodgers, that lineup against your staff, woo, boy, good luck. So I'll say losing each of the next 5 games is more likely than winning 4 of the next 5. Alex, what do you got for us?
Guys, more likely to happen. A unnamed Blues prospect makes the team out of camp. I know I'm really going forecasting with this one.
Okay.
Or a prospect in their pipeline gets traded this offseason.
Prospect in their pipeline gets traded this offseason. I don't know how you make this roster if you're one of those prospects. I don't think there's a spot. We were just talking about this off air a couple of breaks ago. I don't know if this team's going to be able to re-sign Foxa, and it has nothing to do with his cost. I just don't know how you make it work roster-wise. Like, they have too many bodies on NHL-level deals unless they remove somebody from that equation. So technically you could send Matthew Joseph through waivers. You could send Alexander Texier through waivers. You could maybe attach a pick to those guys to see if somebody else would be willing to take their money off of the books for you. That's all possible. But do you really want to do any of that? Or do you just want to not re-sign Radek Foxa, bump Oscar Sundqvist down to that 4th line, and then add via trade or free agency that middle 6 center, and then boom, you're done. You don't have to make any more moves. I think that feels more likely. That's the path of least resistance. In either scenario, you don't have a forward spot available to anybody within your system. Your defensive core is already crowded as is, and it would become even more crowded if you make any other moves this offseason. So I think it's more likely they make a trade of some kind than adding a prospect, because I don't know where that spot is for a prospect. I think they're pretty full.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be more likely they end up trading a prospect. And we've been talking all offseason, or at least the last couple of weeks, I should say, that it feels more likely they're going to be in the trade market than they're going to be signing free agents. So then you just naturally end up getting to a spot where I think you end up moving on from a prospect.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at as well. I think you've got a lot of guys right now in your pipeline. You just got to target the right team that wants younger pieces rather than NHL-ready pieces.
Guys, more likely to happen. The Cardinals acquire a starting pitcher with a sub-3.5 ERA at this year's trade deadline, or the Blues sign or trade for a 30-goal scorer this offseason.
I'll say the Blues trade for a 30-goal scorer this season.
What was the first one?
Cardinals trade for a starter with a sub-3.5 ERA.
Yeah, definitely the Blues.
Yeah, I don't see how you acquire a guy with a sub-3.5 ERA, although you say this with a little smirk on your
Tyler
face,
Mahle,
which tells me you've got a guy in mind.
Mahle. I think Merrill Kelly's right around there.
Yeah, there's just not very many pitchers that have a sub-3.5 ERA, so I'll definitely go with the Blues.
And I think you could find a 30-goal scorer, plus you could acquire one as well. So, yeah, I'm taking the Blues.
I would lean Cardinals, but I get how you go to the Blues, because I think the Blues could end up settling for a third-line center, and that's probably not that guy who's scoring 30 goals. But for the Cardinals, like, I get it. It's hard to go acquire the guy. I was looking more as like if I'm thinking of a number 2 for you, you're looking at a guy in that range. But I'll say Cardinals, because I think I could see where they go after somebody that's like a pending UFA. Won't cost a ton. They go out and make that acquisition at the trade deadline.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. For more likely to happen, you guys give us two scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely, just for what it's worth. Like Chris Bassett, I think, is a pretty good starter. You'd agree? 3.9 ERA so far this year.
It'll be below 3.5 at the deadline.
I just don't think there are going to be very many pitchers that are moved. I bet you there are fewer than 3 pitchers that are moved with a sub 3.5 ERA at this year's deadline.
I'd even go low. I'd say fewer than 2.
Let's see. Malley,
Skeens.
Bassett.
I don't think Malley's going to have a sub 3.5 ERA by then.
Oh, wow.
It's just hard to do, man. There are very few pitchers that maintain that kind of a level by the time they get to like 20 to 25 starts, and that's what you're going to be talking about.
Schemes will get traded.
All right, more likely to happen. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. More likely to happen here on BK and Ferrario. The Blues trade for quality second-line center, or the Cardinals make a trade that allows them to be a contender this year and next. I think it's more likely the Blues get a quality second-line center.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of said that they're not going to be able to acquire a guy with a sub 3.5 ERA. So unless you're going to acquire a massive bat, I don't know how you put yourself in that contender window. I would say it's the Blues.
I think I would agree. I don't know if there's a move out there for the Cardinals at the deadline that makes them a true contender. They're probably a couple years away from that.
More likely to happen from the 314. Cardinals have a true June swoon again, or they end up being in playoff contention at the deadline. So more likely they go in a bad direction or a good direction, I suppose, is basically what they're asking, to simplify it.
I'll stick positive here and say that they go in a good direction, but the Dodgers and Cubs series really makes me worried, because if you lose those two, even if you go on some type of run against the other teams, those two series could be massively impactful of where you stand in the division.
Cubs, 4 games. Brewers, 4 games. Dodgers, 3 games. 2 more against Kansas City. It's like 15 games there. More likely they end up still being in contention, though, at the deadline.
How many of those series do you think they win? Think they win the Royals one and the Brewers is kind of still...
I don't know, man. I think we're maybe overweighing what the last 4 games have been. They've been pretty good against these quality teams.
I'm more weighing the 2 against the Dodgers and the Cubs.
Sure.
Because I think they could win the Royals and the Brewers series. The Dodgers and the Cubs are the ones.
I don't think the Cubs are significantly better than the Cardinals. I think they're better, but could the Cardinals win 3 out of 4 against them? Absolutely. So I think they could win, half of those series. They split against the Brewers, and they're still in prime contention mode. I mean, that could put you in a spot where you're...
You said that's what, 15-ish games?
Like that,
yeah, they could be like 7 and
8.
Yeah, 7 and 8, 8 and 7, maybe 6 and 9, 9 and 6, somewhere in that range. I don't think they're falling out of this. I also think
it's 13 games. So let's say they go 5 and 8, 6 and 7. Fine.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, like, though Milwaukee has heated up, San Francisco just made like 6 roster moves today because they're scuffling too. Like, all the other teams around you are starting to go through it as well. I don't see them falling out of this, so I'll say more likely they still are buyers at the deadline.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. More likely to happen, more likely for the Cardinals to be in their rotation after the All-Star break. McGreevy or Pallante?
I'll say McGreevy. If Pallante continues to struggle and McGreevy performs well when he gets his chances, specifically against the Dodgers and probably the Brewers, I think that would give him the runway and put Pallante down in the minors.
I think I'll go McGreevy as well. I also think McGreevy might have more swing and miss than Pallante, and he's improved his strikeout rate down at Memphis this year, and he looked disgusting the first time we saw him this year. I could see where, even if they are even, say after there you go through 2 starts together, I can see where the Cardinals say, let's quit playing the BABIP game. Let's get a guy that's got swing and miss. So I'll say McGreevy.
I'll say McGreevy as well. I think the Cardinals have earned the benefit of the doubt in this regard. If a guy is outperforming somebody else, they get the chance.
Yeah.
Especially if it's between 2 guys that they want to get runway for, they'll just go with the one that's performing. They did this with Burleson over Gorman at the beginning of the season. Then it flipped, and then it flipped back now to Alec Burleson getting that opportunity. They did this with Victor Scott. They have given the opportunity to Matthew Liberatore in the runway. He ran with it. He capitalized on that chance, but if you see McGreevy come up, he makes 1 or 2 starts as that 6th starter, and he outperforms Pallante head-to-head. Yeah, I think they're going to continue to go with McGreevy over Pallante, because then it is about go out there and compete. Go show me you're the best guy for this job. And if you're the best dude, man, you'll keep going. If you're not, though, if the other guy outperforms you, I'm sorry, but we are about contending this year. As much as we are about the runway, when it's a tie, on which of these guys needs that runway. So I'll go McGreevy. I do think there's a real chance that he ends up getting an opportunity here. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. We'll talk to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, at 1:30. But coming up next, how should the Blues approach their blue line decisions this offseason? And specifically, how does Justin Falk play into those choices? We'll talk about that next year in BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Royals yesterday 10-7. Game 2 of their 3-game set with KC is tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis will be on the mound for the Cardinals. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with puck drop at 7. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMALondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, how does Justin Falk impact the Blues' decisions on their blue line this offseason? This is something that was written by Nick Kyprios over on Sportsnet a couple of days ago. I love Kyprios, by the way. This offseason,
Throws it at the wall.
this time of the year, Kyprios is the man. November, JP Morosi is the man. Why? Because they are content gods. They just throw stuff out. Now, I think a lot of this is truly what they're hearing from general managers and or agents. So it is not just speculation. It is also based in reporting, but they are willing to throw out some speculation as well. So this is what Kyprios, I wanted to have that as the baseline for what I am about to say here. This is what Kyprios had to say in his first trade board of the offseason in regards to Justin Falk. Quote, this offseason, Falk will again be a trade candidate as Doug Armstrong looks for ways to improve St. Louis's roster to set them up for future success as he's handing things over to Alexander Steen. Falk is 33. He played in all situations for St. Louis last season, and although he makes $6.5 million against the cap, he's owed just $4.5 million in actual salary in each of the final 2 years of his deal. The other wrinkle is that while Falk used to have a full no-trade clause, that changes to a 15-team no-trade this summer. So Falk was one of the guys that was included on this list for Kyprios that could be available via trade this offseason. Alex, the other guy that was on this list was Braden Shen. I think that's just a non-starter. I do not think the Blues are interested or willing to do that. If they were going to do it, it would have been at the deadline because teams were desperate at that point in time. There were no alternatives. It was just Shen. How do you view Falk's role with the Blues? How do you view how the Blues see him?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for their offseason decisions on the blue line?
I actually think, and this might rub people the wrong way, I don't think you're actively looking to get rid of Justin Falk this year. If you look at on moneypuck.com, just go off of defensive pairs in the regular season that played over 500 minutes together, because that's typically around where defensive pairs are playing when they're consistent. And Broberg and Falk played 810 minutes together. They're ranked top 10 in terms of expected goals against per 60 minutes. They're right up there with Taves and Makar, Ekholm and Bouchard, Morrissey and DeMello, Theodore and McNabb. Like some of these top defensive pairs in terms of expected goals against are right there with Justin Falk and Philip Broberg. And the part for me that in the past it's been, yeah, you're actively looking to get rid of Justin Falk because you need an upgrade in your top 4. I think the Blues got 2 upgrades in their top 4 this past season that went from Justin Falk being their second best defenseman to Justin Falk being their 4th best defenseman, and Broberg and Cam Fowler. I'm not saying you don't trade Justin Falk. If a team comes calling and says, we want Justin Falk, then I think you explore it if you're the Blues, because it does open up $6.5 million. But my question to those that are saying, well, get rid of Justin Falk should be priority number 1. What's the upgrade there? Because Kessel's not top 4 ready. We saw that last year. Letty's Falk right now was better than what Letty was in the top 4 last season. Yeah. And you can say, well, go out there and sign Aaron Ekblad, but that's great. You might be overpaying to get Aaron Ekblad, and then you're looking to trade for another top 4 defenseman. So I actually am not as concerned about Justin Falk for this upcoming season. I think the upgrade you're looking for is just finding somebody who could play in your third pair, somebody who maybe provides a little bit more offense, because that is the one downplay of Justin Falk. His offense went from a guy who was putting up 50 to 60 points for you to a guy that maybe could get 30 for you. But if he's gotten better defensively and Broberg and Fowler are adding more offense, to me it kind of feels like a wash for $6.5 million for a guy that played 22, 23 minutes a night and wasn't awful defensively. I can handle that in my top 4.
Yeah, I don't love Justin Falk in my top 4. It's not ideal. I would like to upgrade over Justin Falk.
Of course.
I would like to upgrade over Braden Shen as my second line center. How do I do it?
How dare you?
How do I do it? That's where things get difficult, right? It's easy to say and hard to accomplish. So if I'm in Doug Armstrong's shoes this offseason, it almost becomes one of those, like, it's the sliding scale of what I'm willing or able to do this offseason. Can I find that second line center? If the answer is yes, well, I'm probably not doing anything on the blue line, honestly. I'm just going to leave it as is. And next year, we'll kind of decide where we're at. You'll be another year into the Justin Falk deal. There's 1 year remaining. At that point, he's easily tradable if you wanted to next offseason. If somebody emerges, great. There's really not a whole lot of depth in the system right now that you're looking at and saying, like, whoa, got to get that guy in.
Not on the right
Tyler
side.
Tucker will probably get some opportunities, but that's more your replacement for Suter, I would guess, as opposed to Falk or Letty or anybody like that. So I just don't see any urgency to making these moves defensively. It's about what is available for you, and can you go out there and make a clear and definitive upgrade? Because if you end up if you strike out on the second line centers, and you are way lower on your list than you hoped, maybe it's Trent Frederick, right? Who would be a fine signing. I would have zero issues with that. There is upside to him. There's also downside, where maybe he's not a center long term, and you don't know. Well, now I would like to improve defensively, and now maybe you pivot with the money that you saved by not having to go sign or trade for that second line center. Can I then go find somebody else? Can I get an Aaron Ekblad? Is there somebody else that I love? Ryan Fabro, $5 million. Do I think he's for sure better than Falk? No. Could I improve on that third pair defensively, though, and then maybe trade Nick Leddy or just have Nick Leddy as a seventh defenseman going into the season? Sure. Those are the kinds of things that become available for you, but I think it's all related. It's related to what happens with you on the forward side of things with center, and it's also related to can you make any maneuvering with your defense.
I think if you're looking to better your defensive core, the guy you try and ship out would be Nick Leddy. And then you go bring in a Dante Fabro that pushes Falk down to a third pair and Fabro into the second pair. Someone brought up a really good point on the YouTube chat saying, like, the thing with Falk is you need an upgrade on offense, specifically on the power play. I agree there, but I don't think you go out and find that person that's an upgrade. I think you've got it internally. Fowler is now your number one power play quarterback, which was Falk's job and then Krug's job. The second power play quarterback should be Broberg or Parayko, one of the two. You don't need to go out there and actively find one. Now, look, if you could get Brent Burns to play a third pair role on the right side, there's an upgrade for you on the offensive side, and he's playing 15 minutes a night.
Are you willing to do that, though, at the expense of, Kessel? Because Kessel no longer is able to go up and down this year. This is a year where you have to make a decision on him, and I have to imagine if you decide to put him through waivers, somebody's claiming Kessel.
But in that scenario, Burns, I've moved on from Leddy. So then Kessel is my seventh defenseman, or Burns is your seventh defenseman. But
what if you can't move Leddy?
Then I'm not making a move on the defensive side, because Kessel, in my opinion, next year, right now, as stated, is my seventh defenseman, and Leddy's my third pair with Tyler Tucker.
Agreed.
If you want to go out there and find a right-handed defenseman, because yes, in an ideal world, you could find somebody that could play even minutes with Falk and move Falk down, or you just find somebody who provides a little bit more offense. But I'm not doing any of that unless I can move on from one of my current contracts, either Leddy or Falk.
Blues are actually in an ideal scenario right now, defensively.
Which is wild to say, because 2 years ago, that's the one thing we said was going to send them into a rebuild.
Well, it changed everything. They did two things.
Broberg and Fowler.
Yeah. You needed two top four defensemen, and you found them. They did a great job in acquiring Cam Fowler in season, and they identified Broberg as a guy that could be exactly what he was last year. And he lived up to every possible expectation. So now I look at their top four, and again, I would like to upgrade from Justin Falk if possible. That would be ideal for me. I don't have to. If I go into next season and Justin Falk is my fourth defenseman out of those top four, I can make it to the playoffs with that guy in my top four. I just saw it happen. And they did that with Broberg missing serious time, not having Cam Fowler for the entire season, and having Colton Parayko miss extended stretches of time down the stretch last year. So I can do it. I've already seen it happen for them once, and it can happen again. Now it's about, are there any opportunities that arise this offseason?
Yeah.
Does Fabro show a serious interest in signing here? Is it maybe not quite the market that he expected, because it's really just 1 year of significant success for Fabro, and it was with a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman.
Yeah.
So how will the league view that? How do they see his market? If it's only a few years, $4 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Go do that. But otherwise, you don't have to go make that move.
And the hard part with Falk, too, is if you're moving him, you're adding stuff to move him. I don't think teams are trading just for Justin Falk and you're getting something in return. And to me, he wasn't bad enough to where you're paying to get rid of him. Like Kevin Hayes, you didn't agree with it. Kevin Hayes was bad enough to pay to get rid of him.
Well, what I didn't know at the time is that they needed that cap space to go
They
acquire.
didn't either. And then they got the pick back that they had to trade away to get him.
I felt like that was kind of similar to the Cardinals offseason a couple of years ago where they signed Kyle Gibson, they signed Lance Lynn, and then they're like, oh, hey, should we go sign Sonny Gray? Gave him a call, and he was like, hey, we're like last minute here, but give us your best offer. Let's see if we can hammer this out this weekend. We're very close to signing with the Braves.
Yeah. To be clear, they did it right. Their order of operations was terrible.
The capologist for the Blues was like, yeah, Doug, you're going to need that pick back that you traded to get rid of Kevin Hayes.
And son of a... Dude, the Penguins should be everybody's second favorite team right now.
Oh, yes.
Because they did not have to do that. Nope. There was no pressure on them to give the Blues their second-round pick back for the following year's second-round pick. Mm-hmm. I think some of that was the Penguins were probably like, hey, better draft next year. We'll see what that looks like. Right. But so it wasn't purely out of them being nice to the Blues. It wasn't like a, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours in the future. It could have been something that was selfish. But
we could love the Pittsburgh Penguins more when the Blues call them up and say, hey, buddy, can we have that second-round pick? But we're going to offer sheet again, and we need that one. We'll give you 2027s.
If you could go out and make a move, Alex, what do you think is the ideal move for the Blues defensively this offseason?
Probably Fabro.
Okay.
He's young. He's two-way defenseman that does have offensive upside. And in an ideal world, he's an upgrade over Nick Leddy with, to me, that either puts Fabro on the third pair, and that's an awesome third-pair defenseman, or it moves Falk down and it puts Fabro in the second pair. The one downside of Fabro is he's not big, and as we're seeing in the playoffs, look at the Panthers and the Oilers. You need big defensemen to win, but I think he plays bigger than what he actually is.
I think in an ideal world, they don't make a move defensively. Because it means they probably added something of significance to center.
Yeah.
So
I would go that route too.
Like signifying what the center position looks like more so than it is anything defensively. So it's a bit of a cop-out. I do apologize for that. But yeah, if I had to define who is that player for me, it would probably be Fabro. And I do like your idea of Brent Burns. I don't think he's coming here.
No, I don't either.
I know there were some reports that like he's moved his family back to Dallas. He might just be
He's going to be a star.
Either a star or retiring.
Especially if Pete DeBoer is there. Former coach with, but we've talked about the defenseman like from the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, I think you could acquire a defenseman in a trade that just fills into the depth. But I'm with you. My priority is center. It's not defense. I'm fine defensively. And if I can get another piece to help, great. If not, I'm good next year with the 7 guys that I have.
You know what I just realized? Where do you think Dante Fabro ranks on the top 50 list from Frank Saravalli this offseason?
Oh, he's got to be third. He's lower down than what I'll say bottom half.
Where do you think, T-Bone? Frank Saravalli just put out a brand new list June 2nd. This was 2 days ago on the top 50 free agents this offseason. Dante Fabro, where do you think he ranks on that list?
So he's either really low or really high.
Formerly with the Nashville Predators. They decided to put him through waivers. He goes to Columbus this year, has an outstanding season.
45th.
Played 21 minutes a night, finished with 23 points, plus 23 overall. He's 26 years old.
I said bottom half, 37.
I'm going 45th.
He's not on the list.
Oh,
let's go.
That was a true BK game.
That was a BK game.
I couldn't believe that. How does that happen? They have Adam Gaudette on this list.
Hey,
he had a good season.
That 15-goal scorer, Adam Gaudette, to you.
Brandon Saad is on this list.
Oh, that one is wild.
Is that
to
just
me.
like a misprint?
That's got to be a misprint. Are you sure he's not on there? Like you didn't like scroll past him?
He's not on the list.
That's a misprint.
I just did a Control F.
Control F for Fabro, and he wasn't there.
He's not there.
That's a misprint.
That's crazy.
Dante Fabro should be.
Saad's top 50.
Yeah, that's.
Are we sure this free agent group's good?
No.
Yeah. No, it is.
It's not good.
It is good relative to your typical free agent class. There are very few great free agent classes because people just resign, right? Or they get dealt prior to July 1st, and they end up re-upping with whoever that new team is. But like Mitch Marner is not your typical free agent. That guy's a stud. Yeah. And the fact that he's hitting the market changes the top. Sam Bennett is a really good player. I have my reservations about 7 years, $10+ million for a guy that's a consistent like 50-point producer. But the guy rocks in the playoffs, and he's 28 years old. Brock Besser, if the Blues needed a wing, we'd be talking a lot about him. That's a good player, man. Aaron Ekblad, legit top 4 defenseman on a contender every single season. Dude, Tavares is a good player. And he's up there in age, sure, but he's a good player. There are some. Nikolai Ehlers is a really good player. There are some good free agents this year compared to normal.
Yeah.
I would argue that to the death. We don't have to do that, though, please.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to do that because it's not a great free agency.
Yeah,
but you're right. Free
50,
agency is
like,
never good. But yeah,
feel like that's
Fabro
my
should
trump
be
card.
on this. Fabro should absolutely be on
I
this.
think like Donato and Roslovic, like those are really solid middle six centers.
I think
compared
those
to
are your
normally.
prototypical free agents that are going to get overpaid, that are going to be 2 years from now be like, why did we give this guy that money?
That's very possible.
Fabro, or not Fabro, Donato specifically. I think Donato is going to get like $4 million a year. You're going to see him be like, what the hell?
He'll be on like the trade board. At the
Yeah, and
deadline.
then by the trade deadline, it's like, hey, you want to Ryan Donato?
I think it's a pretty good class.
I'd go get Fabro. If we're talking $4 million, I'd go get Fabro. But I'd have to find a way to move on from one of Letty or Falk, and I would move more towards Letty than Falk.
No, I mean, the guys on this list that are at the back half of the top 50 are getting like $2.5 million. So according to this list from Frank Saravalli,
I think Saravalli's just checked out because Daily Faceoff's coming to an end.
well, for him.
For him, not the website, but for him.
Just for him. He's the only one. All right, coming up
Just
next, the
checked
jump
out of
drawer
his
here,
list.
BK and Ferrario. Alex, have you ever heard anybody refer to themselves as having a, quote, damp lifestyle, end quote? A damp lifestyle.
Never heard anybody, say it, but I think I could kind of connect the dots of what it means.
What would you guess a damp lifestyle means? Some of the young kids are
a boring lifestyle?
No. T-Bone, any guesses on what a damp lifestyle would be?
I have no
You're a
clue.
young kid. You should know this.
Yeah, well, maybe this is my lifestyle, and I don't know the right terminology. I have no
Apparently,
idea.
this is what young people are saying about themselves when they still drink beer, alcohol, whatever, but they're eliminating some of it from their lives. So they try to drink less often, right? They call themselves either sober curious or having a damp lifestyle.
I kind of wondered if it was something with drinking.
Why do we have to have a nickname for everything?
Whatever. Gen Z, do you, right?
No, don't do
we all
you.
yell
You
at
annoy
next
me.
generation.
You
do
annoy
whatever.
me. Ours was the best generation.
According to a study that was recently published, millennials and Gen Z hold the largest share of non-alcoholic drinkers. And what this is doing, I saw this article the other day, it is increasing like tenfold the NA beers. People are buying NA beer more than ever before. And overall, beer volume, people consuming beer, actually dropped last year by a little bit. And now what you're seeing is a growth of about 10% annually in the NA beer consumption. It's still like very small compared to like lagers, right? 90-something% of beer consumption is some kind of a lager worldwide. But
yeah.
there are a lot of new NA brands or NA brands that are producing a lot of beer that are really gaining in traction. I wanted to ask you guys this because, I am somebody that drinks NA beer during the week.
You're a sober, curious individual.
Apparently, I didn't know that's what I was called, but sure.
That term just wild
I
to
should get
me.
him a T-shirt. I live a damp lifestyle.
Yeah, sober, curious.
During the week, with dinner, I'll just have an NA beer because I like the taste of beer. I don't really care that, I'm not drinking a beer during the week to get drunk. It's not.
I'm not drinking a
goal?
beer to really ever get drunk. I'm just
Sure.
drinking a beer because I like it.
I just have no reason. I work out and drinking alcohol.
Oh, weird flex.
work
There
out.
it is. There
Not
it
a
is.
big
Now
deal.
we know the point of the
Honey, I
junk
need
drawer.
the NA beer because I gotta go shed some carbs before I get yoked.
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm getting older. My workouts produce less
No
results.
beer for me. I gotta lift.
Drinking alcohol limits those results even more. And so, I wake up feeling worse the next day. It limits the results that I get from my running. I should clarify here. I run, not
Work out.
get yoked out here.
Work out my lower body.
So I drink NA beer during the week instead. It's just an easier thing for me to do. I enjoy it.
I just don't know why. Can't it just be called casual drinker then? Why do we got to be sober curious?
No, I don't call myself sober curious. I
Well,
don't know.
we call you that now.
I'm going to start calling you that.
What do you think the next generation is going to be like? There are just so many things that they do
Annoying.
differently than us. Technology has taken hold in a way that we didn't even have when we were younger, Alex. We grew up, and I don't know about you, I got my first phone when I was probably 12. I didn't have the ability to have internet on my phone until I think I was in high school.
Yeah, I didn't have my first actual phone until I was 16. I don't think I had my first smartphone until I was probably 18 or probably when I was in college. I had the flip phone for the longest
social
time.
media was I don't know if you used this
MySpace.
Zanga first.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, Xanga. You could create your own profile.
That's
all
what
became
MySpace
coders.
was. That's what
Yeah.
I did. MySpace and Facebook were
Never even
those.
heard of Zanga. I've heard of MySpace. Never used it, but
Yeah, MySpace and Facebook were
It
the
was
two that I
Zanga
used.
for me, then MySpace, and then Facebook, and then eventually Twitter, and Instagram, all of that other stuff came along. But now it's dude, these kids have access to all of that stuff when they're 6.
Oh, I know.
7.
I know.
And AI is going to take hold in a way who knows what that becomes, good and bad, that comes along with it. And then there's sober curious stuff that is people don't go to bars the same way that they once did. People are meeting friends in different ways. It's a really interesting time for young people. And even for me, I don't think I'm all that old. I'm 32.
Oh, I feel old.
The disconnect between me and
I think
honestly
you're
somebody
old.
like T-Bone's age,
Yeah.
not T-Bone because he's 70 at heart, but
It's
somebody
true.
T-Bone's age, it almost feels as though we grew up in completely different worlds because of the stuff that was available to you that wasn't available to me. Again, both good and bad.
I actually don't know how I like how you're supposed to handle the next generation, because it confuses me already. And I've got a 4-year-old. So like the phrases that like hearing JR talk about, like, because he's got kids that are like in that high school, like late middle school age.
Sure.
Hearing the terms that his kids come up with, I'm like, what does that even
was all
mean?
that stuff, though, we grew up with that as well. It was different, but there was different lingo and different phrasing and all of that stuff when we were growing up. So that I don't feel like is actually all that different. It's just a new version of the same stuff. But I mean, I guess like this stuff is new and different and legitimately changes your brain chemistry to the point where like people are approaching their lives in different ways than they did even 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Like the pandemic changed the way that kids are learning now. Dude, everybody in school, they all have tablets now.
Yeah, so you can't get away from it.
I got in-school suspension because my phone rang once.
Oh, of course, Brandon, of course you did.
That was intense.
Rang once in a math class, and I had ISS for the next 3 days. Now every kid has a tablet at their fingertips at all times in school.
Yeah.
See, and I grew up on...
when there's no avoiding social media.
Yeah, like at my school, every room had computers. Oh, yeah. Right? Like I grew up on that.
At the
like,
preschool
that was
Adelaide's going to be going to, they use tablets for everything.
And like that did help me, of course, right? Like I use my computer to do all kinds of things.
It also probably hurt you in other ways. Like
potentially,
Like your attention span, I would imagine, is different.
Oh,
your problem-solving ability may be a little different because instead of you having to come to your own solutions, the computer will solve this problem for me, right? Like they always used to say you'll never have a calculator with you. Or you won't have a calculator with you at all times growing up.
Yeah, that was a lie.
I do. At all times, I have it right here. But do you think that maybe you learned a little bit better when you were younger by problem solving through math problems, by showing your work instead of just being able to use this? Maybe. It's just, it's
I don't know. I think schooling education is not good to go off a total tangent, but I think that's going to be very different because the way that they used to explain to us in school of like the study habits that you needed to do and making sure you knew what you're doing for exams was so that you can memorize the stuff and always have it in the back of your mind. Now, because of what you just mentioned, why do I need to study this?
I've always got ChatGPT available to me.
I can always Google it.
Available to me. I've got my phone right here.
I don't need
at
to
all times by my side.
I don't need to spend 3 nights trying to cram for my history exam, because I've got my history answers right here. Like some of the stuff that we did in school is not going to work today.
Dude,
and there's no
motivation.
motivation.
Don't know how to write.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Kids will get out of school.
Do you know how to write cursive?
I know how to write it. I have trouble reading it.
Forget writing cursive, Alex. People don't know how to write. Like just write in a way that is coherent for anybody else to read.
I'm still
because
working on
they
my
type. Everything is typed into a computer document of some kind, right? So when you actually have to go out and legibly write something, there are a lot of people that are now entering the workforce that can't do it. They're just, they're not, they can read, but they can't write in literate ways. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's wild to me.
Just
because
very different.
Like cursive was there was a daily class where we did cursive.
I took it when
that was almost gone by the time I got it.
I have a 9-year-old niece who doesn't even know what a cursive
you ask, can I write in cursive? I can basically do my name in cursive. That's it. Like I would struggle to probably do BK's name, your name, because there's just some letters that I haven't wrote in so long I can't remember them.
They used to have us like the alphabet every day would be like you'd have to write this letter in cursive, this letter in cursive, and like what are we doing? And now it's like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. Now I never use it though.
Sharon's Ladue Pool Boy says, my son is a junior in high school. His handwriting looks like he's 2 years old. Somebody said current high school kids also can't read an analog clock. That's the other thing.
Oh, yeah, the analog clock. Oh, my gosh.
Why would you need to, right?
Yeah.
It's just different life skills, and that doesn't mean, again, good or bad. It's
they do math different now, too.
Yeah,
they do math different.
Don't get me started on that. That's bad.
My 9-year-old does math, and I'm like, this is not math. Yeah.
Somebody said my brother had to go to YouTube on the just to be able to do math with his daughter to help her.
God.
Yeah. I probably will as well.
I am so bleeped.
So anyways, young kids are drinking more NA beers.
You young kids in your sober curiosity, you need to study cursive and how to use math.
Yeah, and BK's drinking the sober beer so he can get yoked. He's got to
watch out of the carbs.
Good for you, BK.
No beer for me tonight, honey. I got a lift tomorrow. I got Pilates in the morning.
I do have Pilates tomorrow. I am somebody on the sex line asked if I'm still doing that.
And NA beer.
My hips, I leave there and
They
I'm
don't
like,
lie.
oh my God, what has happened to me?
That's what Shakira meant.
Cardinals seem to have a clear view on the catcher situation. I think that you're going to want to hear what Ollie Marmol had to say about that next year on 101 ESPN. You guys think we're going to get a game in tonight?
It's pretty
looking nice out.
This is your perfect weather, man.
Honestly, this is ideal.
Because the storm's
The
coming.
last week has been amazing. Absolutely incredible. We've been outside basically every day, at all times over the last 10 days or so.
I tried to force my kids to stay outside yesterday, and they were like, Daddy, we're tired. Can we go in? Like,
now. 50-50 proposition of rain according to my phone.
From 4 to 9 o'clock, it's going to rain.
The rest of the day. But, dude, we got a window from like 2 a.m. until 6 a.m., so if they want to do that.
Isn't that considered just still a doubleheader?
2 a.m. to 6.
Isn't that still a doubleheader?
Hey, man, we can
I think they're
get a
playing
late
tonight.
one in.
I think they're playing tonight.
You think?
Yeah, I'm looking
Do you
at.
think I will see a pitch tonight?
No, you'll be late.
Well, you might not see the first pitch because you're typically late, but I will say you'll
this is
see a pitch.
perfect for me.
Yeah, I think you'll be
They're
good.
delayed.
Yeah,
I'll
they're
be
delayed.
there.
You should be on time.
All right. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Somebody said, BK, it's been like 90 degrees the last few days. Yeah, it's been great.
That's hot.
Before that, it was like 75. But when we get outside, it's like 6 o'clock. It goes down a little bit. It feels
that's
great.
too hot.
So the Cardinals, I'm guessing Pedro Pais will be behind the plate today. Why? Because Ivan Herrera got a day yesterday, and, well, he gets one out of every week, essentially, is the way that they've been doing this recently. Ollie Marmol was on the Gas House Gang yesterday. He does this every Tuesday. I think it's really good stuff. I don't typically promote other people's work, but hey, listen, they do good stuff with him, and I enjoy the conversation, and we get something from it. So kudos to everybody involved. And Ollie, in this long-form interview, was able to expand on how he views the catcher situation, the catcher position, not just like right now for the Cardinals, but also kind of big picture-wise. I thought this was an excellent answer, Alex. This is via KMOX.
Part of the key to a game is keeping the opposition from scoring too. And Pages does a phenomenal job of that. Like his ability to navigate a lineup, prepare for it, understand the opposition, understand the guy on the mound, what he can go to, what he can't, not stay on script when it's becoming predictable. Like there's certain things that he does, man, that go under the radar. Like you don't notice them as a casual fan. It's difficult to notice some of these things. What I will say is like, he does a really nice job of giving our pitchers the best chance to have success. Like Herrera, he's behind the plate today. He'll catch Pallante. But it is really nice to have someone like Pages behind the plate. We should be able to score enough runs and not count on the catching position having to thump and be defensively minded back there. Good teams have defensively minded catchers. I believe that. This is the person that touches the ball every single pitch. So we should be able to have a defense-first catcher and count on the rest of that lineup doing what they need to do. Ideally, I'm okay with that. But does that mean Herrera won't catch? No, he's catching today, and we're going to mix and match, and he'll get opportunities to be back there. But I'm not concerned with Pages' offense at the moment.
Well, sorry, Ivan.
There's a lot there, man. And this is a continuation of a trend that I personally love. They are finally showing some transparency. I think Ollie has mostly been transparent basically since he was hired as the manager. So I almost want to take him out of this conversation, but he's become more so, and he's also been more available. He's always been relatively available. Now he's doing like these long form interviews with KMOX, which I think is good for him and good for fans. The stuff that he just said there is revealing not only about how he views Ivan Herrera's future, how he views Pedro Pages, why they make decisions that they do in game when Pages is coming up for a big at-bat like the 6th inning, and they leave him in there when everybody is going crazy saying you have to pinch hit here. That's part of the underlying reason as to why. Now, you can disagree with it. You can say that's dumb or that you think that they shouldn't view it the way that they do defensively, but they do. And it gives us insight into how they are viewing things. And I personally appreciate that. I like that the organization overall, like Rob Cerfolio is doing interviews about what's taking place in the minor league system. They are revealing things about how they're operating as an organization and the way that they're approaching this stuff. I think all of that's good. But to dive into specifically what Ollie Marmol said there, again, via KMOX, I don't think Ivan Herrera is your future catcher. With this guy as the manager, at least. And I think this guy's going to be the manager because he's done a pretty good job. I don't think this team values... Let me phrase this a different way. I think this team values what Pedro Pages brings to the table too much to put Ivan Herrera behind the plate regularly. They are too much emphasizing the defensive side of things to where he is a guy that you feel comfortable with back there. Timon, you mentioned during our break what the ERA difference is with Pedro Pages behind the plate compared to when Ivan Herrera is behind the plate. For our listeners right now, what is that difference?
So Pedro Pages' pitching ERA when he is behind the plate is at 3.49 compared to Ivan Herrera's, which is at 5.88. It's almost 2 runs difference in earned run average.
It was inflated from last night.
I mean, that's
last night away.
It was not inflated.
That's a really big deal. A really big deal. And whether you value the defensive side of things, the hard part is we don't see it. It's game calling, it's preparation, it's managing the game along with the pitcher. All of that stuff is what made Yadier Molina excellent, along with obviously like throwing runners out, all that stuff. But Yadi was the best at this. And I think the Cardinals thought they were okay with getting away from some of that. That's why they signed Wilson Contreras and then immediately recognized, oh, no, we're not. And now they had basically like the next Wilson Contreras come up through their system. And so they're learning this all over again with Ivan Herrera. I think Ivan Herrera's future position is not catcher in this organization. And if that's the case, man, it brings on a whole host of other questions. Because that probably means he's your DH, at least for the foreseeable future. Okay, what does that do for Gorman? What does that do for Alec Burleson? What does that mean when Jordan Walker comes back if Burleson continues to hit? Does that mean they're just in a straight platoon and it limits the opportunities for Jordan Walker? What does that mean for Lars Nootbaar / Brendan Donovan? Are only one of them likely to be here for the long haul because you have Ivan Herrera's probably tied up into that first base / DH spot, and you end up eventually either putting Donovan into the outfield and replacing Nootbaar that way and putting Weatherholt at second base? Like, there's a lot of questions that can come from this one answer. But Alex, how did you hear that? What came to mind for you?
I mean, the biggest quote to me was what Ollie said: good teams have great defensive catchers behind the plate. And I mean, if that's his mindset and that's your manager, that's the direction they're going to go. So yeah, I mean, look at the line of events over the last few years of Wilson Contreras getting taken away from behind the plate and then finding him a new position and putting him at first base. I mean, what you saw with Wilson Contreras is going to happen with Ivan Herrera, minus the whole he's a catcher, he's not a catcher. I think they're working on it now, but they know where the eventual position is going to be for Ivan Herrera, and it's probably going to be the everyday DH. And then from there, who knows? Because you've got first base tied up, and there's no other positions that you're going to try and change Ivan Herrera into. So on one hand, I do agree with them. Like, I mean, we've seen what it looks like with a offensive-minded catcher behind the plate. And, I mean, Ivan Herrera or Wilson Contreras, it hasn't looked pretty. But the amount of years of success comes from Yadier Molina, and that's what they base it off of. The hard part is trying to find that guy who is good defensively for a long tenure time, but also was not a black hole in the middle of your lineup.
Hard to find those guys, man. It's the hardest thing to find.
And that's why I think they have so many catchers in their system right now, because you're trying to find that next guy. But when you find them, you keep them there. And I mean, I'm just looking through the pitching staffs right now. I mean, the hard part is, like, how do you judge a great defensive catcher? Like, who are the great defensive catchers in the game today?
So hard to judge that, dude, because we don't have all of the information.
Because, like, the Mets, the Giants, the Rangers, the Royals, the Tigers, the Twins, Rays, Padres, Yankees, Astros, all top 10 in ERA of pitchers. If that's not how you're going to just base it.
Patrick Bailey is one of these guys, right? He's excellent defensively.
I mean, Salvador Perez is one of these guys, too.
He's the catcher for the San Francisco Giants. He was plus 20 in defensive runs saved last year. They have a really great pitching staff this season. I don't think that is a coincidence. Cal Raleigh is an excellent defensive catcher.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that you're talking about who also, the big dumper, is a great hitter as well. They've got a great pitching staff there. Cleveland, really good defensive catcher. William Contreras has been a very good defensive catcher in his time with Milwaukee. Was not seen that way prior to Milwaukee, but has developed into one, and they have a great pitching staff there. So
go to the other side of the coin with that. We talked with, God, what's his name from Baltimore? Why am I blanking on it right now? The Baltimore radio host. Yeah, La Canfora. I mean, look at Adley Rutschman. No. He talked about how the guy is not good defensively behind the plate, so unless he fixes that and his offense is in there, they've got absolutely nothing. That's the third worst ERA pitching staff in Major League Baseball right now.
And it's not all on the catcher. We talked about this when they were throwing Wilson Contreras under the bus. Some of it is, do you have the pitchers or not? Right. If the answer is no, like, you're just not going to be a good pitching staff, even if Yadier Molina is behind the plate.
The answer on Baltimore, no.
Yeah, but I do think there's probably something to this notion that it can maximize whatever the top level is from your staff. You can get that with a good defensive catcher from behind the plate. And I don't think the Cardinals right now view Ivan Herrera as that.
I mean, and the eye test tells you that. Like, it's not the same in terms of how the games unfold with Herrera behind the plate than with Pedro Pages behind the plate. Like, that's obvious. The bigger question is what you asked. What happens with them? Because the Cardinals don't view DH as a everyday position. They view it as, this is how we get guys at bats, days off, we can move pieces around. It's how we get in the lineup. With Ivan Herrera and Contreras is here at the first base position, you have to view DH as an everyday position.
I don't know that they view it that way. I don't know that I actually agree with that. Albert Pujols was a full-time DH when he was here. Full-time DH. That was his position in his 1 year that he was here, right? And they just really haven't had another guy that profiles that way. Ivan Herrera just might profile as such a good bat that it's worth clogging up that spot in your lineup. I don't know that they've had anybody else that reaches that level. You know, like, is there anybody else that I'm missing in the last, 5 years, basically, since we've had the DH, that you look at and say to yourself, have to get that guy into the lineup every single day, not good defensively enough anywhere else? just put him as a DH every single day. I think Herrera's really the first guy that's profiled that way.
I'd argue Contreras was that when they were throwing him under the bus in 23. And they kind of went through a stretch doing that.
But then he did eventually, yeah. He
went through a stretch, and then they went right back to we're going to go back to catcher.
Yeah,
we're not going to blame this on Contreras because, A, we just screwed up PR-wise, but we'll put him back behind the plate.
But that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So
I don't know if this is actually a philosophy by them or just something that they're not going to sign somebody to on a long-term deal. Like, they're not going to go get JD Martinez, right? That's never been the way that they operate, and I think you can make an argument either way, but they haven't done that. But this is a young guy that's at a cheap cost, and his best spot to help you right now is pretty clearly DH. I don't know that they're necessarily opposed to that. I just think it's not something they've done in the past because they've had nobody emerge from their system with this kind of a bat in the last 10-plus years. Like since Carpenter, basically. So I do think this might be a little bit different than what they've had in the last decade.
We'll see. I mean,
sure.
I hope that's the case, but it's just, yeah, you might be right. They've never had bats that fall into that category, but it just seems like the Cardinals always emphasize defense, and where are you playing that can contribute defensively?
Yeah, I think he long-term is probably the DH. Maybe give him another position, first base, something like that. And then, but to your point on like it has a fallout on all of that, you're going to have to make a decision on some of these left-handed bats rather quickly, right? If he is going to serve as the, I'll say in air quotes, backup first baseman, the guy that is the one that goes and plays there when Contreras needs that day at DH or does need a day off, well, then I just took away in that bat 4 at-bats there from Burleson. Unless you're going to do a full platoon with him and Walker, and they clearly don't want to do that, and long-term, that's probably not the ultimate goal. So you're going to have to make a decision on these guys. And look, though I am the one that has come off with their frustration behind the plate at times on how they handle the catcher situation, I don't mind if they go with a defensive first-minded catcher as a starter, right? I have no issues with them starting Pages. I have issues when it is, hey, it is the 6th inning. This is potentially the highest leverage spot in the game, and the bases are loaded and Pages is coming up. Because you know who I think he's probably going to remind me of? And first off, I didn't even know this guy was in the big leagues until I watched the Padres game the other night. Martin Maldonado, with a little bit more upside. But if that's what he becomes, that is totally fine to have that guy on your roster, having the starting catching role, but you have to pinch hit for him in the highest leverage of spots and just admit, hey, we may need to sacrifice our defense in the later part of this game because you know what? We got to get back in front before we can just say that we're going to win this game, and that means we sacrifice defense. And that's where I've had my problems, if you want to call them that, my gripes at times when they handle this. I don't mind Pages starting. But, like, we go back to that Tigers game, right? The bases are loaded, biggest spot in the game. You get a right-hander that's pitching to contact, and you're sticking with Pages. I understand that some people view that as early. That was your best spot, I felt, at the time, and it ended up being your best spot for a leverage spot to try and get the lead back to try and ultimately win that ball game.
You're going to have to get stuck with that, though, because Ollie's made it very clear to win games, defense comes first.
And that's the thing, man. Though this is the philosophy where things start coming to a head, I understand it. To a degree, I'm glad that we now just have it. We know that's his philosophy, and so we can judge accordingly, right? You can agree or disagree with the philosophy, but that is where he's coming from. And now that that's out there, we can use that as part of, okay, this is what went into the decision. And then we can decide whether or not we agreed with it or not. He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joins us at 15 minutes. NFL Quick Hitters is next. right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. It is going to be a truly quick hitter edition of NFL quick hitters today because we've got Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, coming up on the other side. We had a really long discussion about young
Defense.
people and
that too.
catching defense. So we'll get to Chris Kerber here in just a moment. I just wanted to spend a moment here, Alex, talking about the Lions.
That's Jaguar. I don't have a lion voice.
Their center retired a couple of days ago, Frank Ragnow. First of all, he was excellent.
Yeah.
A genuinely excellent center. They've got some real questions on this team, man. And I don't know that we're giving it enough credit as to just how many questions there are entering the season. They have lost their offensive coordinator. They have lost their defensive coordinator. Their center just retired, and their offensive line was arguably their greatest strength. Replacing a center is not an easy thing to do, especially when it was unexpected like this, and they went through the entire offseason, and now there's no way for them really to pivot. Their interior is going to be extremely young going into this season. What's your level of hesitance with the Lions as a legitimate Super Bowl contender this year on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's definitely not where it was last year. Like last year, like 10 being, yes, I believe they could win a Super Bowl. I was there last year. This year, 6, probably, somewhere around there. Like, I'm not completely out on them because I think Dan Quinn's an incredible head coach. Dan Campbell is an incredible head coach.
Dan Quinn,
Quinn's also
sure.
good.
Why not? I also think he's going to pick the right coordinators to fix this. And there's a ton of talent on this team still with St. Brown and Jameson Williams and their running back scenario. I do look at that offensive line. Now, they still got some incredible weapons on the offensive line. But as we know, like the center is a big piece of that. But their defense is still a little questionable. So I definitely am not this is a team that should be in the Super Bowl conversation. I think they'll be in the conversation, but I don't think they're going to be as dominant as they were last year.
I don't think this is a Super Bowl contender. Just flat out, I don't.
I think in the NFC, it's going to be up there with some of the others.
I think the Eagles are better. I think Washington might be better this year. I think Green Bay has a chance to be better, but I can't be trusted on them.
Yeah, you're a love honk, though.
If the Rams get Jalen Ramsey, I think they can be better. Their defense still concerns me a little bit, but I think they'll be good.
I think they're the third best team in the NFC.
Maybe. I just think the ceiling for this is low. I don't know defensively what they're going to be, especially transitioning to a different coordinator there. They don't have a great pass rush outside of Aiden Hutchinson, and who knows how he's going to come back from a significant injury. Their cornerback position is still very young, and I don't know how that's going to go this year. Just a lot of questions. And now you add in one more on the offensive line with the interior. I know one thing about Jared Goff. He sure as hell does not like being pressured. And if you've got a guy in front of him now that he doesn't trust, happy feet suddenly start to emerge, and he looks like the old version of the LA Rams, Jared Goff.
I just hand it off to the running back. You got 2 of them, man.
Yeah, that also goes down a little bit when you don't have the same offensive line as you once did. So I think they'll be good. I think they'll win like 11 games this year. I'm not sure that I see the Lions as a Super Bowl contender right now. I would say if I put them in a category of one versus the other, I would say no. Playoff contender, yes. Super Bowl contender, no right now.
I think they're a 12-win team, maybe more than that. I think they're in the same. If you think Washington is a Super Bowl contender, then I have Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl contender. But when they get to the Super Bowl, that's where it's like, man, anybody in the AFC I might have above you.
From the 816, starting to rain pretty hard out here in Wentzville. God bless it.
The PKO struck again. I don't know. Those clouds look really promising for a game tonight, PK.
I just want to watch baseball tonight, man. I want to go to Busch Stadium and see Jack Caglione, and I want to see Miles Michaelis specifically against Jack Caglione and see how that matchup goes. I just want to watch it.
You were such a Royals honk.
I want to see Bobby Witt Jr. in person. I want to see Jack Caglione in person. I want to watch Brendan Donovan in person again.
Nice.
Just
way
want
to
watch
throw
baseball.
a Cardinals in there.
Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joins us next year on 101 ESPN.
You know how you get a 4.8 Google rating if you're an air conditioning company, a furnace company, an HVAC company? You provide outstanding service. And that's exactly what Classic Air Care does. And that's why Classic Air Care was voted Best St. Louis HVAC Company. When you look at the reviews, Classic Air Care has been great helping us keep up with our air furnace. Jack was especially knowledgeable and efficient working on our radiators as well. That's from Maggie S. Very professional and able to solve complex problems, right? Did a fantastic job filling in holes. You just look at what's going on with these customers, and they love the service they're getting from Classic Air Care. That last one, by the way, was from Helen. That's the kind of service they delivered when they come into my house. That's why I'm talking to you about them coming into your house. So when they come to the Kerber household, we know the kind of service that they're gonna deliver. You can count on that kind of service as well. It's the summertime. If you haven't had it checked out, make sure that it's cleaned up, make sure that it's ready to go. And if you have an issue, go online and book an appointment online or call them and get them over to your house to help get that kind of service in your house like we have in ours. It's Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight. Game 2 of their 3-game set with the Kansas City Royals. 6:45 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis will get the start for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with puck drop at 7 o'clock. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The Stanley Cup Final begins tonight right here on 101 ESPN. Pre-game coverage for that starts at 6:30. You'll hear puck drop starting at 7. All of that, again, on 101 ESPN. Panthers versus the Oilers, two of the best in the world on Edmonton's team, and the Panthers, one of the best teams of the last 15 years that we've seen, making their 3rd straight Stanley Cup Final appearance. We've got the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, joining us here via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. You looking forward to this series between the Panthers and the Oilers?
Yeah, I think it's kind of neat when you think of the expansion era, and you've only had 5 Stanley Cup Finals that have been a repeat from the year before. One, shows you how good and consistent the Florida Panthers have been. 2, now, moving into a championship window and what it's like to try to get over the top like the Edmonton Oilers are doing. And how they've got, I don't know about you guys, I'm as fascinated about how they got there and how they maintain it, whether it be trading away a 115-point player and a top 4 defenseman like Florida did for Matthew Tkachuk, right? Or, in the case of the Edmonton Oilers, letting 2 young players walk to free agent offers that allowed them some cap space to make some other changes, and they're back in the Stanley Cup Final. The makeups and how these teams get built, to me, is always a fascinating topic.
Curbs, I know that, like in the NHL, like you mentioned, you typically see somebody get unseated as the powerhouse, and then the next team comes in and starts to open up their window. But does it feel like to you that Florida and Edmonton are just in the midst of this reign where it's going to be hard to see somebody unseating them?
Well, I don't know. Yes, in the sense that I think teams are going to catch up to them. In terms of unseating them, yeah. I mean, that's the old Ric Flair, right? To be the man, you got to beat the man, and they've proven it there. But enough changes. Like, for example, if Bennett goes to another team this year in this offseason, well, that could change the Florida Panthers a bit. We saw what happened, for example, to the Chicago Blackhawks, and they had to move on from Dustin Byfuglien or Andrew Ladd or guys like that, right? It's how you fill those holes in. Matthew Tkachuk said that, their off-season moves is why they are back where they are. Those guys brought, a different element. Every year, even though you've got similar teams and similar pieces, each year is different, presents its own challenges there. Now, for the biggest difference right now, for the Edmonton Oilers, Skinner is playing totally off the charts. He's been fantastic, right? But you know who they're relying on top to bottom. If you can somehow slow down McDavid or somehow slow down Draisaitl, you got a great chance to beat him. But we got to remember, too, guys, when we look at last year's Stanley Cup final, don't forget, that still went Game 7 after Florida had a 3-0 lead. And it was a 2-goal game in the end. So, to me, I think even Vegas might even have the Edmonton Oilers as a favorite in this, don't they?
I'd have to check. I actually have not looked at what the official line is for this series.
I think somebody told me earlier that they might have thought that Edmonton was favored, which I was a little surprised by. But
Edmonton is favored tonight, and in the series, they are a very slight favorite. It's pretty close to even odds, but yes, they are a slight favorite overall in the series.
Yeah, so I don't know. What's it take to knock them off? I mean, you got to play better earlier in the playoffs. To be honest with you. I think some of these teams that are built for the long haul, if you can't knock them off early, that long haul really kicks in. But they definitely set the standard, haven't they? I mean, and the one thing that we know for sure, okay, the reason the Florida Panthers are in the Stanley Cup final for the third straight year, much like the Tampa Bay Lightning, although I do think that these two teams are very different in terms of Tampa and Florida, but it is a much more Western style of hockey that Florida plays, and they play it in the East, and the East just doesn't have enough teams that play that way, and I think that's benefited Florida quite a lot.
Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Curbs, this is a point that I brought up to the guys the other day, and I don't think they really cared, so maybe you'll care about it. I'll test it out on you as well.
Checks out.
A Conn Smythe Trophy. I love the way that it's handed out. It's not just the winner that played the best in the NBA Finals. It's the playoff MVP. And personally, I prefer it that way. I think it's something that, if Major League Baseball could go to that, I think that would be pretty cool. For example, do you like that? Do you like the way that they present the playoff MVP as opposed to just the Stanley Cup MVP? Or am I just out alone on an island?
Yes. No, I do. Because let's compare it to baseball. You have the League Championship Series MVP. It's okay. Whoever did the most in a 7-game window, right? Well, this is whoever does the most over 4 7-game series. Whoever had the biggest impact over a 7-game series. I will always struggle with the idea that the MVP of the playoffs comes from a losing team. But at the same time, there's something kind of perfectly imperfect about it. We've seen it a handful of times. You typically tend to see it with goaltenders, not like what you saw last year with Connor McDavid winning it, right? But, for me, the playoff MVP clearly has to come from one of the two teams in the final, right? It's hard to be a playoff MVP if you haven't won it. And that's where I struggle with that. But I agree with you. I do like the fact that it is for the entirety of the playoffs and not just an individual series.
Since we're talking about voting, Curbs, BK and I got into it earlier this week about the Selke Trophy voting. Your thoughts on Robert Thomas and where he landed?
Well, I would have liked to have seen him higher. I think you could justify – I think I could make a really good case for him to have been somewhere in that top 10.
But Curbs, let me push back real quick.
Here he goes, Curbs. Get ready.
You have to vote top 5.
Here we go.
If you have a ballot, you only get 5 spots. It's not about,
Correct.
should he have been in the top 10 consideration. I'm totally with you. I would have had him in my top 10. But you only get 5 spots, and that's ultimately how the top 10 breaks down. Sorry, Curbs, just had to say that out there real quick.
Okay, well, no, okay. So, correct. I hear what you're saying there, BK. So they're voting for people in the top 5. Mm-hmm. Okay? I'm not exactly sure, and I'm telling this isn't knocking the season he had, okay? But I'm not exactly sure how Jordan Kyrou ended up on somebody's top 5 ballot.
Me either, Curbs.
Okay?
That person's not my ally here.
That was the same. I think was it Keith Law that left Adam Wainwright or somebody else like that? And from that point on, I don't care what Keith Law has to say about baseball, even if he is a really smart, because at that point you lost all credibility. Okay, whoever voted for that lost all credibility. Okay. Now, and again, that's not knocking Jordan. Jordan had a hell of a good year defensively. But when you're talking and voting for somebody that's a top 5 defensive forward in the league, I'm not sure how that is in the discussion.
He certainly
right?
shouldn't be in the same conversation with, like, Pius Suter, right? Just a good defensive forward. Kyrie should not be in the same spot as him, and he is.
No. But back to the Robert Thomas part here. The way the voting does break out is if there's enough people that start to see it. So how do you get in the top 20? How do you get to the top 15? This is a reputation award, guys, and that's why you see so many repeat winners of it, okay? So you've got to start making where enough people say, hey, I think Robert Thomas is in the top 5. So honestly, to get votes where you're 20, 21, you had to have enough people thinking you're in the top 5. If Robert Thomas comes out and next season has pretty much an entire season or close to it like he had since the Four Nations, he's going to get that many more. And the difference in points, well, there might some people think he's top 3, top 4, and all of a sudden those point totals are going to get a little bit higher. I would have loved to have seen, based on the year he had, him be a little higher when you add up all the way the voting was, but I definitely think his trajectory is still going to get there where within the next few years, and I said it all last year, this guy will be a Selke finalist.
Yeah, I do think eventually he'll get there. I think if he was in the top 10, I would have had zero qualms with it. My real point on this was, like, I don't think I would have voted for him in the top 5 this year either. He had a month where he wasn't the same guy because of injury, and he missed some time for injury. And that, to me, is enough to, like, just not have you in my top 5. I hope that changes, though. I hope next year he ends up in the top 3. I think that'd be great.
I would have had him in the top 5 over Sam Reinhart.
Listen, here's one of the crazy parts about that, though, and I'm playing your scenario out there a little bit, BK, right? Sure. Look at how many players were listed on there. Okay? I mean, so
guys
when
that
you're
got real
talking
votes
about,
was basically 12.
When you're talking of, what I'm saying is when you're talking about, like, how the writers vote on it and the criteria, right? It's very much subjective, and how they define it. And some would say, well, I can only vote for centermen because they're the ones controlling every faceoff, right? I can only vote, like, those kind of things. But the fact that you have that much variance, say, out of the people that finish as a finalist, top 3, that just tells you kind of the subjectiveness of the award.
100%. It also tells you how freaking difficult it is, Kerbs, to be able to evaluate defense for these players, right? Like, there are very few individuals, whether that be like hockey media on television or writers, us, what we do. There are very few people that are really going out and breaking down the film defensively for all of these guys across the league. And the numbers are, I mean, at best, hard to trust when it comes to your defensive numbers, whether that be plus minus or some of the underlying stuff, because it can be so affected by the people that you're on the ice with. We saw that this year with Cam Fowler, who came over, obviously not a forward, but a defenseman. His defensive numbers were horrible in Anaheim, not because he was bad, but because he was on a really bad team. And so, yeah, of course the opposition is going to control most of the opportunities.
It's part of the reason why I would like to see, like, the coaches vote on something like this. Guys that see it on a daily basis for 82 games. Like, and then you're getting 32 votes, Kerbs, where you're not getting 70 different guys earning 5th place votes.
But some of these coaches only see a guy 3 times. Yeah. It's tough, man. There's no obvious answer here.
Yeah, that is true. But I do believe, and I believe that you can make this case throughout all the different sports, okay? Number one, I think we put a little too much emphasis on the awards, but it is fun to debate, okay? But number 2, yeah, without it, there goes Sports Talk Radio, right? So, but the reality is okay, it's the NHL Broadcasters Association that votes for the Jack Adams, the Coach of the Year, okay? The writers are the ones that vote for most of the other awards. The players have the Ted Lindsay. That's how the players vote for their MVP. I got to be honest with you, and I'm with Alex on this one when it comes to this. This is not knocking the writers. This is not knocking the care that some put in. But the Keith Law example, or the example we just talked about with the Selke, is a perfect example of why it shouldn't happen, right? Or actually, you know what? What was the other one recently? Who was just not voted unanimously for the Hall of Fame?
It was Ichiro, wasn't it? Yeah, Ichiro.
What was it? Was he
like
like
one?
That
honor is Derek Jeter.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like, are you kidding me? Wait, Ichiro was like one vote shy, right? Was it him?
Yeah, he didn't get one vote.
Okay. All right. Who in the hell doesn't think that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? So those systems and how they vote are flawed, and then some of the people that vote think that they're just that much smarter than everybody. And that's not everybody. I think the vast majority put the right care and the right process into it. But in all fairness, say to a Jeremy Rutherford or a Matt DeFranks or a Luke Korak, right? Or any one of the columnists,
Call them out.
whoever may be voting from a writer standpoint in St. Louis. The reality of it is are they really in tune with what's going on, say, with the Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Ottawa Senators when it comes to the best defensive forward in the league? And the answer is no. So they got to do their best with stats and look at things like that. And you can immerse yourself and still make a heck of a good effort to put it in there. I fully believe that the coaches should be the one doing the voting for most of those awards. And yeah, maybe they only see them 2 or 3 times, but they are much more aware of what they are. They're much more in tune with it than the writers or the broadcasters.
I would almost be interested in seeing Kerb's 2 awards, right? Like one from the writers and another one that comes from the coaches. And then I'd be curious, honestly, to see how the 2 lists stack up against one another. Who are the guys that are seen as more like positive defensively from the writers than they are from the peers / the coaches? I think that'd be a cool way to go about this as well.
Yeah. Like The Athletic and some of those other publications will do that, right? Well, they'll do a poll, like an unofficial poll of the majority of the coaches and ask those things. So we get a little bit of a view on it there, right? But, part of the problem is like I said, some awards become some awards like the Selke become really reputation based. Patrice Bergeron, now Barkov's in that run, right? And then it's based on team success. There's always going to be a ton of debate, and I don't know that there is a perfect system, but I do believe that, like, in the end, guys, here's the one thing: very rarely are we ever debating who's in the finals. Like, now I will tell you that, like, I will tell you that
here, so we got.
When Carlson or when Subban won the Norris, I think you could debate whether they should have been a finalist. But to me, very rarely do you have those debates.
Kerbs, you're the best, man.
Said and done.
Appreciate the time as always. We'll talk with you again next week. Enjoy the game tonight.
All right, guys. Have fun.
See you guys. That's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues. Coming up next is the Rewind here on 101 ESPN. It's time to unlock your inner champion. There's one place to do so. It is, of course, Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. They're online at victorymenshealth.com. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area as well. O'Fallon, Missouri, O'Fallon, Illinois, Sunset Hills, and the location that I personally attend in town and country. They're going to get you right, whether that means erectile dysfunction issues that you're dealing with, you want some weight loss goals that you're trying to meet, you want to meet them, you can't do it on your own. They can potentially help you out with that. Low testosterone symptoms, guys, it happens. It happens to people my age, certainly a little bit older as well. If you feel like you don't have the same energy that you once did, you're not getting the same out of your workouts as you used to, well, could be due to low testosterone. They can check those levels for you over at Victory Men's Health. All you have to do is book that first appointment. Super easy process. VictoryMen'sHealth.com. That's VictoryMen'sHealth.com. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then Tell them what it means for you to unlock your inner champion. It means different things for different people. It's all available to you at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com. All right, we got to get out of here quickly. We did TMA's audio clock today. If you guys missed anything from the show, check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It is free to download, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. So check out the show from today. I had some really good conversations about what happened last night to the Cardinals, Nolan Gorman's role moving forward, the power that he can bring to the lineup, why it doesn't actually make sense to send Andre Pallante down in favor of Michael McGreevy right now, and how the center market has been set for the Blues, what that means for him, and what Justin Falk's role is and their choices on the blue line. All of that is available for you over on the podcast page, and how the Cardinals currently view the catcher situation. Do you think, two predictions here, do you think the Cardinals play tonight? And if they do, will they win tonight, Alex?
They won't win tonight because they won't play tonight because the weather is looking beautiful right now.
T-Bone?
I'm going to hold out hope they play tonight, and they're coming back tonight and winning.
We got the Stanley Cup final tonight.
I think they will play tonight. I think they will win tonight. I think I'm going to give a lot of credit to Brant Brown, who is great at preparing for opposing teams' pitchers. They've seen Noah Cameron once. He's a guy that was new to the big leagues at that point in time. Now they've got a little more information for him. I think this is going to be the night when they get to him a little bit. Put up 4 earned runs against Noah Cameron.
Let's see how he handles a doubleheader tomorrow.
He's Alex's T-Bone. I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.